Greetings, programs, and welcome to the Not My Star Wars live stream. Today I'm going to be chatting with Jayne Theory. Welcome, Jayne. Thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We're just going to have a very loose and fun conversation, basically what Star Wars means to us, what our experiences have been, what we like about it, don't like about it, things like that. Just a fun, loose conversation. No rules, nothing too serious. And of course, we'll keep an eye on the chat if anybody ends up having any questions or wants to get involved in the conversation, whatever.
Sounds
just
good.
Holler at us. So, is there anything that you want to mention before we begin? How's everything? You're in Louisiana, right?
Yeah, I'm in Louisiana. Everything's really good, really calm, quiet.
You're New Orleans or a different part?
I'm in a different part in the middle, sort of central Louisiana.
So it's pretty quiet in your parts?
Actually, I mean, it's pretty, Louisiana's really chill. So there's not a whole lot going on despite all of the craziness everywhere else.
Right.
And I have family all over the state, so everybody's fine.
You're born and raised girl from Louisiana?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm about 20 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. It's pretty quiet here too. So
really,
yeah, fortunately, I don't see any of the mess. So, and Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania in general is a pretty chill place. So,
oh, that's good.
Yeah. Well, anywho's, again, thank you for coming, and let's talk some Star Wars. So,
okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm a little bit older than you, at least. So I was curious, what was your first exposure? Like, how did you first learn about Star Wars? Hold on, let me, there we go. I need to mute the live stream. Okay. So what was your first exposure to Star Wars? What was your first memory? How did you get into it?
So probably my earliest memory of Star Wars was The Empire Strikes Back. That was the first film I remember seeing, or the first anything really with Star Wars I remember. And I'm not sure exactly what got me hooked, but I can tell you who. It was my brother. He was a huge fan. And so it was basically through his love for the story that I became interested in it and became a fan.
So how much older is your brother than you, and roughly how old were you at that time?
Oh, he is like 10 years older. I at the time, God, how old was I? I'm not sure exactly. I mean, that film came out, it did come out before I was born. So I'm not exactly sure how old I was.
1980.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't born. But I don't remember how old I was when I first saw it.
What do you think? A teenager or a small child?
Oh no, I was a little kid. Maybe I don't know. 8, 7, 8, something like that.
Okay. And do you
I was excited about it though. I liked the fighting, the lightsabers.
Right.
But what really stood out was the sort of the family drama, the relationships between the characters. But that scene where, I guess it's just iconic generally, but the scene where Luke is told by Vader that he was his father was what stuck with me. Probably what sticks with everybody, but it stood out in my memory.
Did you feel lost at all? Because if you hadn't seen A New Hope, did you feel like really misinformed, or did you feel like, okay, this movie makes sense on its own?
I'm pretty sure at the time I didn't know any different, but looking back at it, I think it's perfectly fine as a standalone. Even now, like I watched it again recently, and yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, I didn't feel like anything was missing. I mean, obviously, there's a larger world and larger politics at play. But that's what's so great about the film, is that it's a great, the way it's written, it really connects you to the story and to that universe. And it gives you a sense that there is a history, but it also leaves you wondering what's next. you know, even as an adult, I think that's what makes it still to this day one of my favorites.
Right. And
what about you?
I think the prequel's not as much, but definitely 4, 5, and 6. If you only saw one of those 3 movies, you would want more, and you would you have a gut feeling that there's a bigger universe. But I don't think that you would walk away like, oh my god, I'm so confused, and I'm lost. And I think if you only got a chance to see any one of those 3 movies, you would be pretty happy. I remember that when I saw them, I was never disappointed, and then I was never left with a bunch of questions. Now, granted, we always have questions. We're curious, like, who's this person or what's going on with this? But that was, like I always say, that's more like expanded story or even expanded universe questions. Not like, I don't understand the story. What's going on here?
Right.
So although, yes, absolutely, you need to see the 3 of them to tie the knots. I think if you just saw any one of the 3, you could leave very satisfied and say, wow, what a cool little story this is. What a amazing space fantasy opera this is.
And looking back at it, I would say that about pretty much any of the original films or the prequels, it's the sequels that sort of deviated from that concept.
Yeah, and the prequels, you could watch any one of them and be pretty satisfied, but I think that the prequels need support each other a lot more than the original trilogy, and also obviously the prequels support the original trilogy as a whole.
Right.
So if you only saw, let's say, Attack of the Clones, one of my favorites, I think it's awesome. You would see all these clones and all this stuff, but who's Boba Fett and why this kid, and who are the Jedi, and you'd be a little bit lost, but not like an anger or upset lost. You would just be like, well, I need more story here.
Right.
As opposed to the sequel trilogy, you're just like, what is going on with this? So yeah, absolutely. Going back a little bit, I was about 3 years old when A New Hope. It was Star Wars. It wasn't A New Hope.
Okay.
I saw it. I have seen all the Star Wars movies when they first came out, like within the first week. Except for The Force Awakens, and we can talk about that later, but if we even get to it. But I'm an original Star Wars kid. Obviously at 3 years old, you don't remember a whole lot, but I do remember seeing that, the da-da, and the big letters come on, and then the scroll, and immediately I was like, oh wow, like totally, this is gonna be amazing. And just going through this whole adventure, and man, I cried, I laughed, I felt pride, I felt all these emotions.
Right.
And I can't really think of too many other movies that take you on that roller coaster. Sure, there's other movies like E.T. I probably would cry if I saw it today. There's a lot of other great and deep movies, but no other movie that I can think of, or saga or series, that really takes you on this roller coaster of emotions and feelings and thoughts and different things. So I remember
I don't think there's any other saga that compares.
No. And everything has its moments, like Lord of the Rings, it's tremendous and has its moments, but not like Star Wars. It just doesn't have the same. The main thing I remember is that I was instantly in love. And I was going to ask you that when you saw Empire. Did you have to watch it again, or were you hooked right away?
I was hooked right away.
Yeah.
I was hooked right away. But I've always loved that sort of thing too. I mean, this is a genre that is sort of my preferred in terms of entertainment anyway. I love the alternate universe, alternate timeline type story.
Okay.
It's like seeing, call it fantasy, science fiction, whatever you want to call it. I like that films like this take you away from, your everyday life and allow you to believe in magic and the supernatural and people living that every day as if it's their normal life.
Right.
It's just really cool.
Yeah. Again, I just don't know another saga or series that really has. I was just making a quick banner here. Let's see if it'll show up. There we go. Do you see it?
Yeah, I see it. It's cool.
Okay. There you go. Yep. So I remember leaving feeling so many things, being really excited and wanting more, but not feeling disappointed or empty, just anxious, like, wow, this was so good. You know, I want another bite of this cake. And this was right away in love. I knew that if I never saw another movie or another Star Wars, that this was something that was going to be important to my life at 3 years old.
Was there any particular character that you sort of were drawn to?
I would think it was probably Luke. I like them all. Honestly, I really love all the characters, even like the creatures in the cantina. R2 has always been one of my very favorite characters. I love R2. I noticed and liked women very young. Not like that, but I mean, I definitely knew, you know, I could see the difference in women and men, and I would have some sort of attraction and understanding. So definitely Princess Leia, you know, she was a babe. And she was different from anything, you know. I mean, I was a big like Wonder Woman fan. I'm trying to think of other females at that time. The Bionic Woman, She-Ra. Well, She-Ra was later. But it's not, I had seen other and liked other women heroes, so it wasn't like maybe a new thing, but she was definitely something different, you know, princess in space. And right away from the beginning, she's, you know, establishes herself as someone important. It's not so much like Wonder Woman, how I don't remember, it's been years, but I would think in the first episode or episodes, it was just kind of her in a dress, and then later you see her spin and turn into Wonder Woman, right? Like the reveal. Whereas Leia was a very different type of thing. Like, right, first scene you see her, you're like, oh, this is somebody, you know, this is something going on here. She's important. You knew that she wasn't just going to be some extra or side character. You knew that you could sense that the plot is revolving around her and the big dark black menace that just walked in right to the ship. You knew that those two were going to be integral parts of the story. So you know, even as that young, you could differentiate. You know, there's the stormtroopers and the rebel troopers are just soldiers, and you could tell.
And I think that's a credit to how she was written and how she was portrayed, you know.
Absolutely.
It's not easy to, I would imagine, portray that kind of regality, but also that strength and willfulness that she had.
And, you know, for Star Wars to have happened and to have worked, a lot of things had to align and work out. And in many ways, it was the will of George Lucas and all the things he put in place. In other ways, it was also a whole lot of luck in that all these things lined up. But, you know, to George's credit, and people, sometimes it blows me away. Like, people say, he doesn't know how to direct or he doesn't know how to write. The reason you're talking about Star Wars in 2020 is because of George Lucas. The reason that this whole thing is so important and blew up was because of A New Hope. That the reason that the movie industry changed and that became the biggest film of all time is because of George Lucas. And George Lucas was very conscious of things like Leia being seen in the beginning and how she was portrayed. Did he hand sew her costume? No, but he approved it, and he said how he wanted it and how he wanted her to look and how she was supposed to act. Now, granted, he had help. There was lighting. There were special effects. Carrie Fisher, bless her soul, understood her role and played it to the T. So it's not just that, you know, the magic fingers of George Lucas, but I mean, we have to give him so much appreciation, because while a lot of things were luck, none of this stuff is accident, at least in my view. I mean,
No, he was
knew what he was
responsible for
doing.
making sure all of those pieces aligned.
Right.
And it was an incredible risk, but he had a vision. And I think it was one that he had to have felt would be embraced.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is, if he didn't love this story and believe in it, he wouldn't have gone and chopped at the studios, asked for millions of dollars, and tried to make the film. Did he know ultimately if it was going to work or not? No. On May 25th, 1977, they were all in the movie theater freaking out. But he had to have had some foresight, some belief, and some knowledge that it was going to work, because he went through all of this to make it happen.
I think he did.
Yeah, absolutely. He's no fool. You can never predict. You know, you create a product, you say something on Twitter, whatever, and you never know what people are going to react. But you know, again, we need to give him a lot of love and credit, because it's 2020, and you know, I have a channel that's called Not My Star Wars because of that man. So you know, it gets a little frustrating when I hear people say, well, he was this and he was that, and Star Wars was great. If Star Wars was great, but not because of George Lucas. It's like, are you serious? It wouldn't exist.
I wonder sometimes, though, if people who are saying that are just trying to undermine his talent and undermine, you know, what he did in order to try to prop up the more recent version of Star Wars.
That's part of it. Part of it is just trolling. Part of it is, I find, Jane, that I've met so many people in my lifetime that I love Star Wars. I know all about it. And I talk to them for 3 to 5 minutes and they don't know a damn thing about it. They didn't really watch the movies, or they haven't seen them in 20 years and they're going off of when they were 12.
Right.
And they didn't buy the toys. They didn't play with them and read the comics and talk about it and wear the t-shirts and and I'm not saying that everyone has to go to that extreme, but if you're going to make a statement that I love Star Wars and I know it, then you better be able to back it up.
Right.
And, you know, when I tell you I love and know Star Wars, trust me, I do. And I can back it up 10,000 fold.
And not be critical of people who have legitimate arguments against, you know, the product, because that's the thing. I think that some of this is, in fact, intentional backlash against fans who prefer or just like the original product. And so I don't know, I think it's not just normies or what have you who are saying things like that. I think it's people who simply don't like the original for whatever reason and despise everything about it. The story, the heroes, the vision, all of it. They want to turn it into something else. And so there's nothing you can say to convince them otherwise. They have their own agenda. And they don't care about the story at all.
No, not at all. And what better way to validate the new stuff than to diminish the old stuff?
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, it's pretty sad that it is that way. And I agree that a lot of it is that. I mean, literally the agenda of destroying it. But some of it, I think, is also people kind of in the middle that like the new and the old, and they just aren't willing to accept like the difference or really admit that, you know, the new ones aren't anywhere in the league of the old ones, so they somewhat defend it. And you know, as I've said, as I'm sure you've said, as a lot of us say, you can like whatever you like. None of us are angry with you if you love The Last Jedi. That's fine.
Right.
There's only two issues that occur. One, you saying it's a great film when it's not, and two, saying that it's canon, that it fits the story, that it continues it, that it's part of the Star Wars lore, and it's not. I mean, a 3-year-old can watch this and tell you, well, wait a minute, well, that's not Luke Skywalker. That's not how Luke acts. That's not what, you know,
that's the problem. That's
act.
What I tell them all the time is, look, I will remove emotion from it entirely. structurally speaking, it wasn't soundly done. You just don't do a trilogy, any trilogy. It could be a trilogy about apples. You don't do it that way, where it's different directors with different visions and essentially 3 different stories, and you're calling it a trilogy. I mean, with or without the story, it was just poorly done from the very beginning. So I don't know how people defend it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's illogical. So I don't know.
No, you're right. And I want us to go back to the original movies, but I'll say real quick that those 3 movies on their own are a mess. But more importantly, when you watch the 3 of them, they're totally disconnected. And then the most absolute important is they have nothing to do with 1 through 6. And if they have nothing to do with 1 through 6, then they aren't Star Wars.
Right.
Plain and simple, period. I mean, no matter how much you like it or want to argue it or support the mouse or whatever it is your logic is, it's not Star Wars.
It's like they're different characters. But let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are your thoughts on the sort of expanded universe, all of the novelizations and comics and things like that?
Okay. Again, I'm an old school original kid. So I saw all of this stuff coming. There was stuff from day one. I've talked about it, and recently in a video, I think I saw somebody that had it. It was this kind of horizontal shaped, almost like magazine book. It was really big, and it had large images. It was scenes from the film. I don't remember if there was even text in it. If there was, it was like little captions. And I used to have that thing, but I was a kid, and it got destroyed, and that was a million years ago. So there was always things from the beginning, T-shirts and stuff like that, books and comics and stuff like that. It just was very few and far apart. Most of what we knew about Star Wars lore, like, for example, I knew that the stormtroopers were originally clones. I don't know, probably back in 1980 or something like that, a long time ago. And that's just because you would hear and talk things amongst fans, like through the grapevine, through the street, through the streets, you would hear talking with other fans, because back then there wasn't all the conventions, and there certainly wasn't the internet and all that stuff. So but we would catch a thing on TV, or this was later, but the videotapes and the stories would have like extra scenes or documentaries and stuff like that, the laser discs and stuff like that. So really the EU didn't really start till the 90s, the early 90s. And that's when it started to, you started to see books and stuff like that. Now, I was in love from day one, so I was always looking for Star Wars books and magazines, and I didn't buy every last one. I didn't read every last one, but back then there was a lot less stuff, so it was much easier to keep up with. I can tell you that out of all Star Wars stuff, whether it be toys, the bed sheets that I had as a kid, the action figures, the magazine articles, the comic books, the books, everything that has come out, at least up until 2012, let's say, or around that era, maybe a little bit earlier, because Luke, obviously Star Wars kind of ended in 2005, if you want to say. If you took all of the Star Wars stuff, I have very easily touched, played with, read, looked at, I have been aware of 80 to 90% of all of it.
Wow.
Okay. So I think that stuff is amazing. I love it. There's a lot of amazing stories. Let's get specifically to the EU, which you were asking about. I think that it's amazing. There's a lot of really good authors and stories. Timothy Zahn was always one of my favorites. I think I supported 1,000%. I think that Disney was foolish for not only using George's outline for 7, 8, and 9, but also using the EU, and furthermore spitting in our faces and saying, well, that's all not canon. Now, let's be honest, okay? And this is from someone that's been around from the beginning. None of that stuff was ever canon. Okay? Technically, it was never canon. George Lucas has said it several times. The only thing that is true canon in Star Wars is episodes 1 through 6, period. Okay, as much as a lot of us love the EU, and it fits and it expands and it's beautiful stuff. And yes, he did have to sign off on some of it, but some people get it twisted and think that he was like signing off on every book and every chapter. And no, what he was signing off on was big events like, can Yoda die? Can this character go to this planet? Can this person be introduced? Can this person interact with this person? So there were certain parameters that Lucas would maintain because of the overall canon for the movies and the story. So yes, Lucas would sign off and oversee things, but it's very clear, and it has been stated very many times, that he did not have the time to be reading all these stories and all these books and signing off on everything. It was only on major decisions. And again, I will repeat, I have the quote. I have more than one quote from George Lucas. The only thing that is canon is the movies 1 through 6. Okay? So as much as I love the EU, as much as it fits, some of it contradicts
some of it. Right, I was about to say.
Some of it contradicts itself. Some of it is not great stories. Okay? 90% of it's awesome, and then some of those are just crap.
Agreed.
Some of it contradicts. I'm a huge Boba Fett guy. There's like 3-4 different stories of him escaping the pit. One, he flies out. 2, he crawls out. You know, there's different. One is he gets found by the Jawas. Another one, he gets found by Dengar. So there's a lot of contradictions. I don't want to say a lot of contradictions because most of it was pretty good. It was it had good continuity, and they did their best to not conflict. They would talk to each other. The authors and Lucas, imagine that, would talk to each other.
Shocking.
As opposed to now, they're like, this guy's making a comic, this girl's making a novel, this girl's making a and they don't even talk to. They all literally make up their own version of shit. It's amazing. So I want to stress, I love and support the EU 10 billion%. It is a great disservice to Star Wars, to the fans, to the community, to the saga, that it has been pushed aside and swept under the rug. But I also
bastardized.
Yeah, and bastardized, because now they keep dipping and taking pieces of it, whatever.
Right.
But we have to also be real that the only true canon is episodes 1 through 6. Now, touching on that, the irony here is, keep in mind that I know that Lucas regrets selling Star Wars.
Yeah.
We all know that at this point. But I also, and I've been meaning to make a video about this, but I'll just mention it, that when he sold it, he had several reasons. One, he wanted to spend time with his kids. Imagine being George Lucas. You have not had any freedom in the past, 40 years? He wants to do other film projects. Bless him. You know, he's been stuck living questions and ideas and signing and interviews and everything for Star Wars for the past 40 years. Something that not everybody knows, that $4.05 billion that he got for Star Wars, he donated it all.
Wow, I did not know that.
Hey, people don't know this. He donated it. He didn't need it. Star Wars was worth, and I have the articles for proof, $20 billion when he sold it. Okay? So what people don't realize is he got millions of stocks in Disney. So really, and he even says it in the Charlie Rose interview, because Charlie Rose says, you know, oh, so they bought it for $4.05 billion. He says, well, that's what they say. Okay, so they didn't really disclose what they paid for it. It's a lot more than what they're saying. Now, user logic, if it was less than what they said, he would be pretty upset about it and take them to court or mention it. What it is that he got a lot more for it.
Oh yeah,
maybe
I
not.
can imagine.
Not cash, like obvious cash, but he got a lot more for it, a lot more value for it. Right. So he's no fool. So he wanted to do other things. He wanted to free himself a little bit. He had so much with Star Wars. But I also want to remind everybody that, and it's in my videos, and you can see it for yourself in other interviews and quotes and all kinds of stuff, that the story is 1 through 6. The story ends with Anakin being redeemed by his son.
Yes.
So technically, by finishing 1 through 6, Star Wars was already over. So what he sold was already done. He essentially hustled Disney because he knew even if they totally fuck it up and change it and destroy it and burn it to the ground, it doesn't matter because Star Wars was done at episode 6. He said this many years before the Disney conversation and after. So he's no fool. He knew that no matter what Disney does or anyone else does with Star Wars, at the end of the day, we all know that 1 through 6 is Star Wars. That's the story, and it's over.
The actual Star Wars.
That's the actual Star Wars. So really, they can make 1,000 movies and spit on characters and degrade them and do whatever they want, but it's all irrelevant because it ended in 2005.
But it's still frustrating to watch, especially
it is.
When they're not creating their own stories. They're still changing and manipulating characters.
Absolutely. That's what triggered me to create Not My Star Wars. You know, absolutely it's frustrating. It's heartbreaking. It's
like you can pretend those don't exist, but
well, they exist. They physically exist. I'm not saying they don't. But the fact of the matter is that Star Wars ended in 2005. So regardless of what they do to the story, right, it kind of is irrelevant because it was before it was even being talked about being sold. Lucas stated it's over. The story's done. You know, that's like they were a few months ago, they were talking about someone's taking over Tolkien's scripts and going to do new stuff and whatever. Well, it's the same thing. At the end of the day, they're going to create this whole new, ridiculous thing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because Tolkien's story is done. It is what he did, and that's the end of it. You know, whatever else they do is just extra. Does it exist? Yes. Will some people embrace it? Sure. Will they like it and whatever? Fine. You're allowed to do that. We're not saying you can't. But when the creator says this ended at episode 6, well, then really everything else just is totally irrelevant.
Fan fiction.
Fan fiction. That's what it is. So going back to your question, the EU. Again, I love it. It's amazing. A lot of it fit. A lot of it expanded. He even used some stuff. He adopted some stuff from the EU. It's by no means irrelevant. The EU is very special and very important to Star Wars, especially to us, the fans. But it was not perfect. It was not all technically canon. And no matter what Disney does at this point, we have the 6 movies. They can't change that. They may alter the film now and try to re-release them all jacked up, but they can't change what millions of people around the world saw, witnessed, lived, loved. That's never going to go away. A lot of us still have the old videotapes or DVDs or whatever. So, it kind of at the end doesn't matter. What matters, I guess, more than anything is what we teach our children going forward and, showing them the difference. But I think that anybody with any kind of logic and common sense can watch. And this is another thing is that people, it's obvious they haven't watched the films in a long time. Because there's no way that you can watch 1 through 9 and say, oh yeah, this all sticks. This all makes sense. This is one piece of story. No, it's not.
I don't understand that.
And it's because you're just being hard-headed. You just want to troll people. You just, for some reason, are a Disney-ite. You love the mouse and are going to defend the mouse to the end. Sometimes people, it's like, I love Disney. I grew up with Disney. I watched Mickey Mouse. I used to love all that stuff. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that as an adult, seeing and knowing the stuff that Disney has done, which I have a video coming out on that. Disney has a very dark, nasty past. And knowing these facts doesn't mean just because I loved Mickey Mouse growing up, I'm going to defend him to the end. No. That stuff is great. The stuff that I loved, I acknowledge. I'm a huge Tron fan. I like the Black Hole. There's a lot of stuff from Disney that I loved and still do. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to just blindly defend them. So it's like I said, if you watch the 9 movies, there's no way that you can say, well, this is all correct. This is all a story. It's not. And the EU books had a lot more connectivity and continuity than anything that Disney has done. So,
and a better picture, I think, of the world. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, granted, factually, there are some issues with some of it, but still, you get to see the Star Wars universe. You know, you get to see different planets and different characters, and
well,
it's a fun experience to sort of live in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's a key difference.
You don't feel that way about the sequels.
No, and there's a key difference, and here's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
The EU, number one, was before a lot of the other stuff came out. So it was all different authors, fans of the story, that were creating an expanded part of that universe without the actual knowledge of what is coming or what's in George's head. So they had to all respect certain parameters, but on the same token, they had quite a bit of liberty to create. Now, the difference is that Disney has all the history, and they choose to do something different.
Right.
So the EU innocently just expanding the universe made some mistakes and had conflicts, because later Lucas said, well, no, actually, I supersede everything, and this is what happens to this character or this planet, right? But Disney is just literally the opposite of that coin, where it's like, okay, we know all the stuff, here it is, and we're just going to go ahead and do whatever we want. Totally different. So it's a totally one is
profitable.
One is innocent and trying to create and expand and grow. One is love. The other one is just literal, like, okay, we're just going to stamp out whatever was there, and you know, it's ours now.
Right.
And Star Wars was never. I mean, at the end of the day, it's George Lucas's, you know, but he knew, and we all knew, that it was millions of people's. It wasn't just George's or whoever's. It belonged to a lot of people's hearts and minds. So, I don't know. I guess I probably answered your question on the EU, but yeah, that stuff is, you know, amazing. I love it. I support it. It is really a crime what they've done with all of it. But at the end of the day, it's like I've said 1,000 times, the story ended, and the only real canon is episodes 1 through 6. So Disney can't really do anything, no matter what they try to do. It's been over, and they lost. In a sense, George Lucas sold them a dead horse. You understand? Like, he got the ride out of the horse, and he sold them the dead horse. The horse had the name Star Wars. And they bought it, and now they're going to try to re-energize this horse and repaint it into a pony and do all this little pony
They want to drain it,
Right, they're going to drain it. But Lucas knew that when he sold it, that ride was already over. So it doesn't really matter what they do. Does it hurt him? Yes. Does it look bad? Yes. Does it suck? Yes. Is it disrespectful? Yes. All of that. But if we just always remember that, as the creator himself said, it's 1 through 6, well, then there's nothing Disney can do that can tarnish or touch that.
Right.
It really all doesn't matter. So, anyways, that's my feeling on that. You know, and man, it was nice over the years. Like, every now and then I'd pick up a book or see a story, even if I wasn't like buying something, just, you know, happen to be in the bookstore or buy it in a shopping a grocery store or something, and just seeing like, oh, there's a new comic, or there's a new magazine, or there's a new book. It always felt good. Like, yeah, Star Wars, you know, it never died. It never went away. The fans always very much supported it. And now it's like, you see that stuff, and I don't even look at it. Like, you know, I know that it's just not going to be anything cohesive, and I just don't waste my time. I don't bother. So I haven't really looked at anything other than like research and stuff that I do in my videos. I haven't bought or looked at any of that stuff since, you know, at least 2012. Force Awakens did it for me. You know, that was
really,
yeah. I saw that and was like, because well, first I was terrified when he sold it. I was like, oh no. But then I said, you know, okay, well, it's Disney. They have their own vault, so they protect and respect things. They have the studios, they have the money, they have the, you know, access to everything, director, lighting guy, costume, makeup, special effects, music. They could get anybody on any project. So if anybody can do Star Wars, then it's Disney. So I said, okay, I'm going to give them a chance. And I saw Force Awakens. I walked out literally feeling hollow, not mad, not like nothing. I felt nothing. No feeling for any character, story, nothing. Just like nothing. I remember leaving like, Star Wars is dead. That's it. It's done. I also remember thinking to myself, okay, if I never saw Star Wars or anything related to Star Wars before and I saw this movie, okay, well, it's this like space fantasy thing. Okay, it's kind of neat. But being as I know all of Star Wars history, I was like, I just saw A New Hope again. Nothing has changed. Nothing has progressed. Every single movie that Lucas made moved the dial. It introduced new characters and new ships and new planets, but it also changed the technology of how film is made. And not just the technology, but the way that the mechanics of how the movie industry worked. Every film, he moved the needle. And Disney has, if anything, moved the needle backwards. So, I saw Force Awakens. I said, well, that's it. It's done. So, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I didn't cry. I didn't nothing. I just felt hollow. Yeah. So, to me, I was like, oh, well, that's it. They had their chance and they really blew it. Han Solo was not. He adored Leia. He would have been with her. They would have been together going through all kinds of adventures. They would have made... if anything, they would have probably gone to where Luke was at to be close to their child, who's not Ben Solo because it's Ben Skywalker. Would have been, close to whoever they end up making, Jason and Jayne or Jaina or whatever characters they end up making. I would imagine they would have been with Luke, close. They're all family. Families tend to stick together. Imagine a giant galaxy where you have no family. Your home planet's been blown up.
Right.
Han Solo was always a loner anyways. He would have been nothing. He would have wanted nothing more than to be with Leia. He would have had Chewie close to him. And I'm sure that all of them would have stuck close to Luke. They would have supported Luke. They would have backed him up, not only as rebuilding the Jedi Order, but also, as as his family.
And that was the thing that was just so jarring to me when they introduced him as essentially a deadbeat dad. Where we left off, they were all so close. Yeah. So it's like, what happened? And then they don't provide an explanation. It's like,
well, Disney happened.
Doesn't make any sense. Right.
They just wanted to diminish those characters. How can we make them look bad and get as far away from them as possible and push our new characters and stories?
Right.
And the only way to do that is you have to totally desecrate the original characters, because they knew the second that you see Luke Skywalker, everybody was like, yes, Luke, what's he gonna do? That's what we all were waiting for. And obviously the only way to prevent that is to make him the opposite. This is a very deep psychological thing. It's basically, I don't want to get into it because it's a much bigger world issue, but what it's called is inversion. And it's something that's been going on for decades, centuries, where they are flipping the head on everything. So basically Luke, Han, all the characters were literally inverted. They were total, like a bizarro world version of themselves.
Right.
And this is to instill, one, to discredit the original, and two, to program you in a new way of what is supposed to be Luke Skywalker, what's supposed to be Han Solo. And it's what's really fun is about Disney thinking they were going to wipe away the past, create their own characters, and make a bunch of money just because it says Star Wars on it. But what they took for granted is that people don't just love the name Star Wars, we actually know and love the story and what it was and the characters and the planets and etc.
I mean, and it was just so lazily done, though. I mean, they could have done anything without saying we're going to turn each and every one of these characters into their exact opposite.
Well, what they should have done is just stayed away from all of it and gone like 100 years in the future and just started their own stuff.
Yeah, could have done that.
Just leave it all alone. Just move forward. Don't ever go back. Don't ever go to where it left off. Just go like 100 years forward and pretend like the stuff doesn't exist and just create your own new thing, and everybody would have been fine. Sure, we would have wanted to see Luke, and we would have said, "Oh man," but what about? But at least they would have stayed away and not disrespected what was there. Where they screwed up was they thought they were just going to stomp all over the old stuff, and people were going to be like, "Yeah, new Star Wars. This is the truth."
Right?
No, and it's funny because they cheated themselves of billions of dollars by doing that. They literally screwed themselves out of so much money, and they did all of this for money. This shows how.
But I was prepared, like a lot of fans. I was prepared to spend. Like when I heard that they were going to bring back Star Wars, I was like, you know what? I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's see.
If they made some cool stuff, sure, absolutely, I would have been. I used to have all these sets and toys, and I loved all that stuff. But they chose to do something else, so they cheated themselves. It's really pretty funny. It shows how clueless Disney and Lucasfilm are. It really, and obviously Kathleen Kennedy, it shows how disconnected she is because she's the one that's supposed to be overseeing all of this, and obviously she is totally clueless.
But I mean, they knew something, like some people say, well, they didn't pay any attention to the original stories or the lore or anything like that, but you can tell they did because they siphoned a little bit here and a little bit there, like you were saying earlier. So they knew, they just made a conscious decision to reject it.
Well, when I say they are clueless, it's not that they're not aware. Like Kathleen Kennedy, she quoted, well, we don't have books and we don't have comics and we don't have any 100-page novels, knowing damn well that obviously there is, Kathleen. We all know.
And obviously she knew that because,
she knew that. It's not that she doesn't know. When I say that they're clueless as in connecting the dots, as in understanding, number one, what Star Wars really was, and number two, that we're not stupid. We're not just going to like, okay, well, you decided this character's now this, so okay, well, you said so we're okay with it. That's not how it works.
Right.
So when I say clueless, it's not that they obviously they have the vault, they have all the stuff there. They're choosing not to use it correctly, or not use it at all. So when I say clueless, is they're clueless as to what the property is, what it means to people, how to properly leverage it, how to respect it. Those types of those financial and business decisions,
right?
They are totally clueless. Just yesterday, speaking on this, I was in Walmart. I was doing grocery shopping. I go once a month, and I was like, you know what? I haven't looked at the toy section for a while. Let me go see what's going on. There was like 10 Leias, like 10 Hans. I don't remember seeing anything from the new stuff. They had these, like one of the skiffs from Return of the Jedi from Jabba. And then they had Jabba's palace. And I'm looking at it, and immediately it was a cool little place that I was like, okay, Jabba's palace, blah, blah, blah. And the first thing that sticks out to me is in the center, there's the Carbonite Han, right? It's like this vertical block. But it doesn't have Han. There's like it's just like a shiny flat surface.
Wait, what?
And I look at it and I'm like, you guys can't be this stupid, right? Like,
wait, is it just a flat box?
Frozen. It's just like a flat block. And I'm like, you can't really be this stupid. Like, did you guys really make the toy this way? You have to have Han. That was the whole point. So this other guy with his girlfriend were looking at Star Wars toys at the same moment, and I showed him. I'm like, look at this! Like, look at with the Carbonite block. He's like, oh yeah, that's weird. So, and me, I'm so like disconnected from it now. Like I just don't even give a crap about what Disney's doing.
Mhm.
That I showed him and then I just like put it down. I was like, oh, whatever, this is stupid. And he picked it up and he started looking at like different sides of the box.
Uh-huh.
And on the other sides of the box, you could see the little Han carbonite block. So several things, there's a few things that could have occurred here. Number one, instead of the original block that was hollow, I don't know if you remember what the original carbonite toy was like, but it was basically a hollow back, and it was it was black or very dark, and it had Han in it. This was like a grayish silver and very like clean cut, like it was a machine cut rectangle.
Okay.
The original was hollow in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a lot of detail. Okay, so this one was one thing that may have happened is they just made like a solid block and then like put a raised surface on one edge with Han on it, which is nothing like the original. Okay, whatever, things change.
Yes. Yeah.
Second, maybe they just totally goofed and said, screw it, we're just going to put a block in the toy set. But third, what I think is what happened is this, again, when I said clueless a minute ago, this is how clueless they are. The toy maybe inside is correct, and the other images around the box are correct. But the front box image, the poster, the attraction, the advertisement that's supposed to grab you has a flat, shiny block as Han Solo. It's not Solo in carbonite. So this again shows you how clueless they are, because the people that marketed and printed and signed off on and manufactured and shipped this toy don't even realize that the most important picture, the front of the freaking box, has a flat block for the carbonite Solo.
That's crazy.
Now, you don't have to be as old school of a fan as me. If you've ever seen the movie, you're going to be like, well, what the hell is that?
I'm not surprised, though.
I'm not surprised either.
Not shocked hearing that.
But this goes to what I was saying, is that they just truly don't care or don't pay attention to the details. It shows in everything they do, the posters, the toys, whatever. It's just crazy. So, let's backtrack a little bit. So you saw Empire. So then where did you go from there? Did you go see Star Wars? Did you go to see Jedi? Did you chill out for a while? Were you like all of a sudden a Star Wars girl and went crazy and tried to find everything? Like what happened?
Well, we had everything. So it was just a matter of watching. I did see the next movie that came out. I wasn't in the theater when I saw it. But I did see it. And then just watching all of the films over and over again and playing with the toys and the games and yeah.
So these were videotapes?
I'm pretty sure they were videotapes.
So did you do Empire, A New Hope, and then Jedi, or?
Not in any particular order. I guess at the time I didn't have a concept of that. So it was just watching the movies because they were fun to watch.
And
I like the characters.
And you recall watching them all several times?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. See, that was another thing back then. As much as people say, I love The Last Jedi and I love The Rise of Skywalker, they've all seen it 3 times. And,
yeah, I know. Some of those people have seen it more than once.
Well, all 5 of them, yes, have seen it more than once. The mass majority of people have seen it 1 to 3 times.
Right.
Whereas if you talk to anybody that watched the original Star Wars, we've all seen them like 100 freaking times.
At least.
You see it on TV and you watch it again just because it's on.
Right.
Even if you don't watch the whole thing, you watch a few minutes of it or a few scenes.
Sort of like Star Trek.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Not everybody understands this with the box office. Star Wars was a phenomenon. So, yes, people all around the world saw this film, which contributed to a huge amount of numbers and box office sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why all those films set records and had such a big impact was because people were going back to see it again.
Exactly.
And this is why every Disney film has declined, and why The Rise of Skywalker failed terribly, and Solo even worse, is because people saw it once and said, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
And then never saw it again. Okay, you can't argue with the numbers. The fact is there that the reason that the box office disparity is there from the old films to the new ones is because people aren't going back to see them. So,
in fact, I mean, I think it's drawn a renewed interest in the prequels. More people have probably gone back to watch those than to watch these Disney Star Wars sequels.
Yeah, well, ironically, in ways, this whole mess has helped the original saga out. People are seeking out the old toys. People are seeking out the old movies. I didn't hear any talk about the prequels for years. Now everybody's talking about them again.
Mm-hmm. After some people had sworn them off, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I always love them. Let's talk about the prequels a little bit for a minute here. What's your thoughts on the prequels? I always loved them.
I actually did. I felt like it helped to flesh out Anakin and his motivations. Now, you know, him as a kid, there were some issues I had with that, but I think it gave us, at least for me, a confirmed respect for his character. Because I wasn't someone who frankly thought Vader was pure dark side anyway. So when the sequels came along, I felt like it explained even more so that he really wasn't. As much as we're supposed to believe that he sort of turned back, I never felt that he had completely turned in the first place.
Well, I think Lucas did a great job of setting it up where, you know, you see him in A New Hope and you don't even know if he's human or a robot or what exactly he is. And he's just like, it's like the Grim Reaper walked in the room, you know, he's just death and you're like, holy shit. And even in Empire, you know, there's a lot of that, but definitely throughout.
But there were just things that he would do to me that showed that there was something else happening. Even the original trilogy. I mean, with the Emperor, I mean, he would do or say things that in a way was protecting Luke. You know, he was hunting them down, but you never, at least I didn't get the sense that it was motivated toward destroying them or even necessarily harming them. I just never felt that. And for me, the prequel sort of affirmed what I initially thought in the first place, was that there was something more going on here.
Yeah, now what I was going to say is throughout the first three films, you see that Lucas shows us that he's conflicted, that there's more to this character. He's not just this evil creature or whatever, because we still weren't totally sure what he was, right? At least not until, you know, Empire, you see him in the chamber with his helmet off. Then you start to get some sense of his humanity. But before that, you're just kind of like, you know, what is this guy? So you definitely see the conflict throughout. I always felt as if he was evil. He'd had his evil to him, but he didn't impede Luke and the gang as so much as he kind of like said, okay, let's see how far they get. Let's see what happens.
Right.
You know, and he kind of gave them the opportunities to, you know, he was chasing them. He was trying to get them and he did his share of things. He cut his own son's hand off, for Christ's sake.
Right.
But I think at the same token, like Vader could have ended him right there.
At any moment.
Yeah, at any moment. So, especially at that time, Luke was not nearly as experienced as his Jedi, and the tables had literally turned where Luke could have ended him right there. So, you know, and again, to credit to Lucas, all the parallels and reflections of things that he would do, the echoes.
Correct.
So yeah, absolutely. I think that the prequels are not the original trilogy. I think pretty much all of us can agree, although there's people that prefer, you know, younger people that grew up with them, I'm sure. But just being objective, obviously, they're not the original movies. They're not perfect. They do have more dialogue and more of a little bit of a different style as far as the film themselves. Never mind that they're digital era and that type of thing. Just like the meat and bones, the meat and potatoes of the films is different. But they are excellently made. They moved the film medium and industry forward. They were gorgeous films. By the way, something that not everybody knows, the Phantom Menace had more practical models than any Star Wars film. And everybody complains it's so digital and it doesn't look right. And well, it actually wasn't as digital as you think. It had more this is an absolute fact. You can see it in interviews that the Phantom Menace had more practical models than all of the other Star Wars films, and maybe even more than all of them put together. Okay, so like the arena, the pod race, and all that is practical models and real sets, and it's not as digital as you think. Yes, did they duplicate some characters? Did they add things? Sure, absolutely. But it's a actual fact that the Phantom Menace has more practical models than any other films.
I didn't realize that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch again.
Yeah. So you know they were different, but they were great films. They most important, they had the continuity. They continued the story. You know what I mean?
They were written out. They were actually planned.
Right. They were planned. Did he change things along the way? Sure. I've seen a lot of interviews where he kind of wrote the final screenplay for each film. It's not like he had it all written out, but something that people take for granted is it's George Lucas's creation, baby, and story. So he doesn't have to necessarily have it written out for you to see, for him to know what's going on.
Right, where it's headed.
Whereas a third person like Kathleen Kennedy, who has no idea what Star Wars is or what's in George's head, obviously, unless she writes it down and fleshes it out on paper, it's going to be a jumbled up train wreck because you have no plan. Lucas didn't necessarily have to pen the plan because it's his creation in his head. He knew the overall arc of everything that had to happen. So it's okay that he wrote the final script before each film, and it's okay that he changed and tweaked and adjusted and did things, because overall he already knew the story back in 1970 something. You know, he didn't have to flesh it all out. He already had a story and a plan, and it shows. It's very obvious of, you know, that it's about Anakin and all these things. He also, Lucas never neglected, like R2 was a huge part of all of this. He was present in all of this. He is the one that actually tells the story. That's another George Lucas quote. The story is told through R2D2. You know, he made sure that everyone was relevant, from 3PO to Padme to, you know, Captain Panaka to Boba Fett to all these people. He gave them their proper homage. He gave them their proper due. You know, a big part of Attack of the Clones was because he killed off Boba Fett, and everybody was like, ah. And he said, if I knew that he was going to be so important, I wouldn't have killed him so easily. Hey, Horror Nation, thanks for coming, buddy. It's good to see you. Horror Nation's a big time supporter. He's always in my streams and he's a big supporter. So I always appreciate seeing him. What's going on, bud? So now I just lost my train. Yeah, he always made sure that everyone, you know, was involved and respected. And the Boba Fett thing, yeah. So that's why he knew back before 77 that there was the Clone Wars. At that time, he wasn't thinking the clone was going to be Boba Fett. But then the Boba Fett thing happens, everybody's like, no, Boba Fett, what did you do? And all these years, he's always within the top 5 most collectible Star Wars figures. He's always got this huge fandom. He's important to a lot of people. Some people don't care. Some people think he's stupid. That's fine. But understand that there's a huge community around Boba Fett. And that was his way of making up for it. He said, okay, well, I need to bring him back. How am I going to do that? I'm not going to move forward with it because I already did Return of the Jedi, but I can go back in the past and I can make him significant. And not only is it significant, but the entire, with all you people out here that are all crazy about the Clone Wars and Rex and all this, Boba Fett, Mandalorians, the show The Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, the clones, the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones movie, the Clone Wars cartoons, all of that you owe to Boba Fett. Okay, people have to understand this. You don't have to like him. He doesn't have to be your favorite, but that is a fact. So Lucas, very intelligently, always, my point being, respected and acknowledged his characters and made sure that they had continuity and that he didn't forget them and that we all got some enjoyment out of them. That's another thing. Like, he didn't play favorites. Sure, Luke and Anakin and Padme and Leia were going to get more screen time and more, Han. We're going to get more exposure, but he never left R2 under a tarp like they did in the sequel trilogies.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, every character, even Zam Wessel, like, you know who Zam Wessel is because she had some significance to the story. You saw her, you heard her name, she spoke, Anakin chased her around. I mean, a side bounty hunter, and she's known, she's loved by at least some people. She's not a hated character. Even Jar Jar that people like hate. Well, you hate him because you saw him, you knew him, he had screen time.
Right. That's true.
So Lucas was always very good about fleshing things out and paying due respect, and most importantly, the overall is the story, the consistency, it all tying together, it all making sense. So, the prequels weren't, the original trilogy. They weren't perfect, but I think they're damn great films. I think they're a lot of fun. I think they're not necessarily, like, if we didn't have them, it's not the end of the world. We're okay with
I think they help flesh out the characters in a unique way.
But if I have a chance to have, more Star Wars and expand on the story and it's all canon and it all makes sense and it does all the beautiful things that it does, Coruscant and the clones and all this stuff. Well, then, yes, absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much. They're great. I love the prequels. Yeah, 1 through 6 equally. I don't know. I love 4, 5, 6 more than 1, 2, 3, but I do very much love 1, 2, 3 as well. And I'm, again, thankful for them. I wouldn't take them away. Could he done some things differently? Could he maybe done some things better? Sure, but I'm not like angry about them. I think they're fine. I think they're good as they are. I wouldn't. I've never like stomped my feet around Jar Jar. He's not that big. He's not that big of a problem. He's just a creature in the universe. Lucas was showing you that even a weird, awkward, clumsy knucklehead has significance in the universe. That's what he was showing you there. Jar Jar was involved in a lot of major events in the prequels, and people don't want to acknowledge this. He's just stupid. No, he's not stupid. He's actually one of the most important characters in all of this thing. And then there's even speculation that he was the Sith Lord, which is funny, but it could actually fit. I think all the characters are important. I think they're all beautiful and great. Some more than others, but I think the prequels are great. And a lot of people, the acting was terrible, or this kid, or that. And I'm not saying that Jake Lloyd deserves Academy Awards. I'm not saying that everything was perfect, but part of Star Wars the point was unknown actors. And I'm sorry, for a 9-year-old or however old he was, he did fine.
I think so.
It's people make it like, oh God, he's the worst actor ever. It was terrible. No, it wasn't. He did fine. I just watched it recently, and we were all like, yeah, he's a kid. He did fine. Would Leonardo or somebody done better? Okay, maybe. But would it have been the same movie experience? Not necessarily. It's like people don't want to remember that Anakin was a conflicted child. You have to think of his story. He's a slave, born without a father, lives in the middle of dust and dirt and sand, doesn't have anything. He's disconnected from his mother early, and then the next time he sees her for like 10 seconds and she's dead in his arms. He sees all the stuff going on in the galaxy. He gets his limbs cut off. I mean, so much stuff happens to this kid. I'm not making excuses for him. He should have chosen wrong. But, we have to, people like say he's so emotional or a crybaby. Please, if half of you went through even a fraction of what Anakin Skywalker went through, you would have been just acting crazy. So I think that Hayden and that Jake did just fine. Was Padme Natalie's best performance ever? Was the Academy Award? No, but she did just great for a young queen and senator. She did great. All the characters did very well, and Lucas looked for that. People that were going to be genuine and unknown, and support the story. Not if they were black or gay or this or the other. Are they going to support the story? That's all that Lucas ever cared about. Whether you're an alien or tall or short or male or whatever, it didn't matter. They just support the story.
Yeah.
So I think the prequels were great. It's about 8:15. I don't want you to go, but you did mention if you need to go, by all means. So it's up to you. I'm having a good time. If you want to continue, by all means. But if you need to do something, I don't want to hold you.
Yeah, I have to go, but this has been great. I've learned actually quite a bit that I did not know about Star Wars and the behind the scenes facts. So it definitely makes me want to go back and check out some things that I hadn't noticed before. But thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks so much for coming. You are always welcome. If you want to reach out and just talk about whatever, you're always welcome. Give me a shout. By all means, please come back sometime. If you ever want me to come over to your stream, by all means, I'd be more than happy. I owe you one anyways. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention. Please tell everybody, what you're up to, where to find you.
You can find me here on YouTube. I do mainly movie and television reviews on Sundays at 6, and sometimes some commentary on whatever's happening in the entertainment industry. You can also find me on Twitter at Jayne Theory. So I hope everybody can stop by and check me out.
Yeah, please do. I love Jayne's videos. She's they're fun videos. So check her out. Again,
I try not to do any negative stuff, so it's mostly light.
Well, I find, do what your heart tells you, do what you feel right. Try not to be overly negative, but if you need to express something, do it.
Yeah.
But try to have fun, and your gut should guide you, and make sure that you're having a good time. If not, it's not.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, all right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much,
everybody, in the chat.
Talk to you soon, and please come back sometime soon. Anytime, you're more than welcome.
Definitely, sure will. Good night.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Okay, chat. I will hang out for a few minutes. If you guys type in the chat, I will hang out with you. If I don't see anything, well, then I guess I'll kill the stream. But for the time being, again, thanks again, Horror Nation. Good to see you, Raymundo, Espectro. The prequels are really good as world builders. Another weak point of the new movies. Yes, absolutely. The prequels did fantastic world building. like I was talking earlier with Jayne, there was a lot of world building. We saw new planets. Lucas was always pushing things and introducing new things. And that was the first thing he said after The Force Awakens is there's nothing new. That was literally his quote. There's nothing new. They didn't create anything new. And when he said that, he meant it both literally, like, hey, this is A New Hope all over again. But also, like, you guys didn't push the film industry. You didn't push technology. You didn't push special effects. You didn't push story. You didn't build any characters or worlds. You see new Jakku, but did they build Jakku at all? Like, what is Jakku? It's just another desert planet with scrap on it. It was like they didn't establish anything. Whereas Tatooine, you saw Lars Homestead, and you saw the cantina, and you saw the docking bays, and there was all this. You came to love Tatooine, so absolutely that was something I think all the 1 through 6 was good at. But yes, the prequels, even more so than the original trilogy, did a lot of world building, and that was a very cool thing. To be fair, I like the original trilogy more than the prequels, although I love all 6. There was a lot of things that the original trilogy did better, but like you mentioned on the world building, that's one of the things that the prequels did better than the original. So the prequels had their own merits and weight, and did things that even the original trilogy didn't. So absolutely. The most important thing, as I said with Jade, is that they support each other. It is a story of continuity, and it all fits together. What do you want for the future of Star Wars? Man, that's a real tough question. See, and when you say, do you want? Because let me tell you something. Let's just say for some fluke reason, like I gained ownership of Star Wars. Well, the first thing I'm doing is wiping out everything that Disney did. And I mean all of it. Rogue One, The Mandalorian, Clone Wars, cartoon, all that shit. Poof, bye, gone. It's all non-canon. It's all a jumbled up mess. And I would do exactly what they did to us. I would say it's not canon. It's going to become fan fiction, not even legends, fan fiction. And I might even erase it from the vault so you can't even see it anymore. That's the first thing I would do, because you can't really go forward until we clean up this mess. Now, that's me. I think that most people wouldn't do that, but that's me. What do I want for the future? Well, it's a tough thing to answer, because what I want and what Disney is going to do are obviously two very different things. I want good stories. I want good characters. I want the Star Wars magic feeling back. I want them to respect the past. I want them to create things with continuity and that go back to the roots of Star Wars. Family, friendships, the little guy rallying together to, take out the oppressive government, which is, what in ways Lucas didn't have messages, at least not like a social justice type of messages, but there is a lot of symbolism and messages in Star Wars. The Empire, look at Vader's helmet. That's a Nazi helmet. Okay. It's like the Third Reich, the Empire. He took a lot of things from Vietnam and World War II and the Roman Empire and all these types of things. There's a lot of symbolism in Star Wars, only it was world history and issues. It wasn't like personal agendas that were in Star Wars. So I would like to see it go back to that type of thing where it was respect for the fans, respect for the story. What do I want for the future Star Wars? For somehow, some way, George Lucas to get back in control and steer the ship to proper course. And let me tell you something. If I got control of Star Wars, I would certainly want to do a lot of things. But you know what the first thing I would do, and I would do throughout the entire journey of my ownership of Star Wars, the logical, smart, and humble thing to do, I would pick up the phone and say, hey, George, I need your help. Hey, George, how is this supposed to go down? What is the story? What do these characters do? You know, how is Luke supposed to behave? You know, all these types of things. I would have from the get-go been like, dude, I don't care if I bought it from you. I don't care if you're not involved, whatever. I would be on the phone with George Lucas every day and consulting the creator. So, you know, I think sometimes people may think like, if I got control of it, I would do some, you know, other whatever. I would be on the phone with George all the time. So, you know, it's hard to say. At this point, I'm really kind of numb to the future of Star Wars. What are they going to do? Like, you know, I'm a huge Boba Fett fan. I would love to see a Boba Fett movie, but I know they're just going to make him look stupid. So my heart says, like, man, I would like a Boba Fett movie, for example. But then my brain says, well, no, I don't, because then they're just going to further destroy my favorite character. That's why I don't want to see him in The Mandalorian. Not only does it not make sense for him to even be in The Mandalorian, but so that's just a really tough question. I don't have like particular stories or things that I want because I'm really very numb to the future of Star Wars. Honestly, I wish Disney would just like leave it alone for 5-10 years, get rid of Kathleen, and just kind of revamp and plan out some things and bring in someone that actually knows and loves Star Wars. And you know, but I feel like, me personally, I'm never going to really feel too happy with any of it as long as the nonsense that we have is gone. So it's really a tough question. I hope that kind of answered it, but let's see. They needed a new enemy that was not leftovers of the other villains. Well, yes. And if you're going to use Kylo Ren, even though there is no Ben Solo because it's Ben Skywalker, well, at least develop the guy. Give him some character. He's like a cardboard cutout, a little emo child. I mean, people said that Anakin was emotional or crybaby or whiner. My goodness, look at Kylo Ren. Lord. So, you know, if you're going to use Kylo, then, well, develop him. And if you're referring to Snoke, well, that was another one. Like, you know, they made him out to be like this mystical, super powerful guy that only ends up getting killed easily and didn't do anything. They didn't build any story, past, present, or future with him. And then naturally, you know, as he got killed off, they hit the panic button and they had to bring in Palpatine because we all know that was not the plan. Snoke was supposed to be the big bad. We'll never know because they screwed that up. So, yeah, leftovers of other villains. Yeah, I mean, you know, and furthermore, they took it, then they, you know, doubled down and, oh, well, he's a clone. You know, I created every voice you have ever heard in your head. I created, apparently, you know, Palpatine was creating all kinds of Snokes. it's just so stupid. Yeah. I mean, I would have, here's the thing. When you are writing stories, especially stories that have a history to them, well, then you have to take one of two routes. You either need to build off of and respect what came before. So therefore, rather than creating some idiot that you're just going to kill off, then you should have done like maybe, well, Plagueis wouldn't really work because Palpatine killed Plagueis. But you could do another Sith Lord. But you need to, you know, cohere to that. Or you need to get totally away from that and then do something totally new. Disney, one of their biggest mistakes is that they're kind of trying to double dip. Like, we're going to do what we want to do, but then we're going to pull in parts from the past. And that's just never going to work. So they should have just created a totally new villain and stood with him. And, you know, they could have gone a million ways with that. There's 1,000 stories they could tell that. They needed a new. Okay, lol. I think you were laughing when I was talking earlier about I would erase everything. Yeah, I would literally, honestly. I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you guys. If you guys handed me the keys, all the Disney stuff goes poof. Sorry, Mandalorian, Clone Wars cartoon, all that shit. Bye-bye. It's all not canon. It all contradicts and retcons itself, and I'm getting rid of it all. Phony Filoni, bye-bye. So, just a word of caution. If you hand me the keys, it's all going away. First Order was just the Empire in different clothes. Yes, absolutely. If you read, I haven't read the whole, I think it's a book. It might be comic. And I think it's called Bloodlines, although I usually confuse the name. I think it's Bloodlines. And it's a story of how Leia creates the Resistance. Okay, and basically she has power in the Senate. Then it gets out that Vader was her father, so all these people start to distrust her, so she breaks away from the Senate, and then she creates the Resistance, and all this stuff happens. Now, if you really look at all of this, the Resistance is just the rebellion, and the First Order is just the Empire. It's, again, Disney's attempt of just relabeling things so that, one, they don't have to write George Lucas a royalty check, and two, so they can stay claim to creating new things. Anyone that knows anything about Star Wars knows they have not created anything. So, yes, it's all just carbon copies. They said specifically that Kylo is not a Sith. And that's okay. There can be just dark side Force users. But, I mean, come on. We know he's the modern day Sith. I mean, he's the antagonist of this thing. It's just silly. And if he's going to be... See, this shows you how much they didn't think it through. He's specifically not a Sith in The Force Awakens. They had Snoke, who's not a Sith. But then they killed Snoke, so they had to bring in Palpatine. Who was Palpatine? One of the most powerful Sith of all time. And he wanted Kylo to be his apprentice. And or Rey to be his apprentice. Or take his mantle. Either way, it was Sith. And there were Sith troopers, and there was the Sith, not collective, I forget what they were called, Sith whatever, the Sith gang that are in that stupid arena. It was it's nonsense. Okay, so it's like, that in itself shows you that they didn't plan this out or know what they're doing, because they did away with the Sith and the Empire, yet we came right back to the Sith and the Empire. Right back to Star Destroyers, and instead of a Death Star, okay, we'll just put the gun on the Star Destroyer and that'll work. So we just full cycle came back to everything, the Empire, the Sith, the Jedi, all of that. It was all in the first movie. Supposedly the Jedi are gone, Luke wants nothing to do with it, but then at the end, oh well, Rey's the ultimate. She's all the Jedi, guys. She's all the Jedi. Oh boy. Yeah. Empire in different clothes. Yeah, the whole Disney Star Wars, but in specifically the sequel trilogy, is literally the old Star Wars in different clothes, and very poorly done. Horror Nation, yes please. I believe that was when I said if it was up to me, George Lucas would take it back. And again, believe me, I would slam down the hammer if I took control. But on the same token, know with all my heart and wisdom and logic, and I would be all on George, calling him every day and saying, listen, please, I need your help. This is your story. I want it to be as accurate to your vision, not mine. Because we all have our little versions and thoughts and ideas and likes and wants with Star Wars. But at the end of the day, all of that is irrelevant, guys. There's only one thing that matters, and that is the creator. He's the voice. Okay, so as much as there's things we're going to like or dislike, it doesn't matter. I want it to come from him. So, could they get George back to make his sequels? Well, if Kathleen and Bob Iger very humbly said, George, please, we really screwed up. We seriously need your help. Please, we'll do anything. Please guide us, help us. We're going to give you full control. Well, sure. I think they could. I know that he's very unhappy about it. I know that he's made several comments. I made a huge mistake. You guys didn't do anything new. I think if they really humbly came to him, and of course he would have to have full control, I don't see why not. Is he going to be as involved day to day as he was? No, he's older. He's got other stuff going on. And that's part of why he sold it, because he doesn't want to be involved in that run around of every day and all the things. But if they really humbly came to him and said, listen, we screwed up, we need your help, and we want to honor what Star Wars is. Can you please bring back Star Wars and you'll have full control? Then yes, I think he would. He would hire some people. He would have some other people be his hands and take a lot of the load off of him. But would he oversee it, use the outlines, fill in the blanks, and bring back the magic? Yeah, I think he would. Could they do it? Yes. Would they do it? No, not in a million years. Kathleen is never mind Bob Iger, but Kathleen is never going to admit that she was wrong, that she had agendas, that she screwed it up. She's not, her forces female pride is not going to allow her to say, hey, I screwed up and I put all these ridiculous agendas into Star Wars and I was wrong. So that's never going to happen, guys. We all know that. So the only possible way that could happen is Iger grows some balls, fires her because she's a terrible employee. I don't know how she even has a job. Anybody else would have been fired a long time ago. And say, okay, we need to revamp, restart. And it's George Lucas. So could they? Yes. Will they? Not in a million years. That's why, I don't know if you guys have heard me, but, now that Disney's just hemorrhaging money, if I was Lucas, I'd say, hey, man, let me buy it back. I would try to find a way to get it back. Even if he gave it to a fan or to a group, something, but just not a huge corporation like Disney that's just going to manipulate it. Filoni is a Sith apprentice to Kennedy. Okay, well, I don't know if I've really talked about Filoni. So let me talk about him for a while. I think Dave Filoni's a nice guy. I think that he's a good person at heart. I don't think that he maliciously is trying to hurt Star Wars. I think that he does love Star Wars and that he does love George Lucas. I think that he has a great respect for the franchise. I think that overall, he's not a bad person. But I also know that he doesn't know about as much about Star Wars as so many people want to give him credit. He doesn't. He knows a lot of trivia, but knowing trivia doesn't mean you know and understand Star Wars. I don't care if you can win at Trivial Pursuit. Do you understand the core story, meaning, mechanics, and magic of Star Wars? He does not. Everybody got all excited with this little speech on the Disney Gallery. I could have told you that same speech 40 years ago, buddy. You're not saying nothing. I don't think he's doing it maliciously, but he's misguided and he doesn't know what he's doing. I can show you tons of quotes from Sam Witwer and others that said, hey, Dave, you can't do that because this conflicts with what happened here. So he obviously doesn't know this stuff that well when he's retconning himself all the time. When Mandalorians are walking around without their helmets, and then he's part of a show called The Mandalorian insisting that they have to wear helmets. So I don't think that he's like Kathleen has an agenda and doing it out of spite, but he's not as well informed and understands the overall thing as much as people want to give him credit. Some people are like, oh, give Lucasfilm to Filoni. Oh, Lord, no. He is not the guy. Ray Steelwalker, yes. Well, here's the thing. She didn't have to steal anything. They handed her everything. So it's maybe even less because she didn't even earn it by stealing it. She literally was just, here, you're the best. Here's everything. Here's R2, here's the Millennium, here's the lightsabers, here's Tatooine, here's the Twin Suns. You're every Jedi, but you're also every Sith because you're the clone of Palpatine. You're literally everything Goddess Mary Sue Ray. And we handed it all to you. You don't have to train. You don't have to do nothing. You're just the bestest. You can beat Kylo Ren in your first time holding a lightsaber. I mean, seriously, come on. I really like the Filoni, what Filoni has done, but I think the current Lucasfilm... Okay, and yeah, that's why I kind of stopped what I was saying, because I wanted to tie this into that. Again, I don't think the Filoni is a bad guy. I think that if I could sit down and talk with him, he's probably a pretty nice guy. He's a little funny, his little wolf stuff and whatever. But I think he's generally a nice guy, and I think that he has good intentions. But yes, working at Lucasfilm, current Lucasfilm, and having Kathleen Kennedy putting all these stupid little thoughts in her head and bossing you around, because remember, she's the boss. At the end of the day, she gets to tell everybody that's involved with Star Wars what's what. A few months ago, there was this rumor that Kathleen Kennedy was kicked off the set of The Mandalorian, and you know, there had feuds and all this stuff. Well, this kind of stuff like frustrates me because people say these types of things. And let me just clear the air, because Doomcock was one of the people that brought that up. And I'm not calling out Doomcock at all. I believe in his sources. I think that he's a very honest and legitimate person and persona, right? The future ruler of the earth. I like Doomcock. So I'm not at all attacking what he said, because he's one of the people that mentioned this thing that there's some feud going on at Lucasfilm. But at the end of the day, like you said, that's a rumor. What I'm talking about is other people saying, well, like, you know, oh, she's been fired and she's no longer allowed on the set. And you have to pay attention. If you're going to make this kind of statements, you need to pay attention. Just watch the Disney Gallery stuff. She's in every interview. She's at the table over talking and interrupting Favreau and Filoni and everyone else at every chance she can get. She's showing you that she ain't gone nowhere. They're all hanging out at the table, smiling and talking together. It's just like politics. Like, you know, people get all upset about Trump or Biden or Hillary, but at the end of the day, I can show you pictures of these people behind the scenes attending dinners and events together. So yeah, on TV, they stir you up and they have debates and they talk smack and they show you this side and that side, right wing, left wing, Republican, Democrat. But know that behind the scenes, they're all on the same team, guys. They're all laughing at you. I can literally show you pictures of Trump, Bush, all these guys, Clinton, these guys, Obama. They're all hanging out and having dinners and events together. So don't think that the little horse and pony show that they show you on TV is real, because it's not. And this is the same thing that happens at Lucasfilm. That you hear that Kathleen this and Kathleen that. Well, I got news for you. They all hang out and have lunch together. They all have dinner. I just recently, I don't remember if it was in a video or I made a meme, I think it was, on Twitter. There's a picture of Kathleen with JJ drinking champagne. I mean, these people, you know, yeah, it was a Twitter. Let me see if I can find it. I'll show you guys. Just got to remember where. It should be easier if I just find it on Twitter. Anyways, the point being, you know, people say, well, she's been kicked off the set and she's not involved, and finally they're, you know, getting rid of her. No, she hasn't gone anywhere. She's right there, still in control, still pulling the strings, still saying what's what. She's still the president of Lucasfilm. You know, don't be deceived. Where is that? I could have sworn I put that on Twitter. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, let's see if the screen share will allow you to see that. Okay. So, yeah, in the meme, I show you that I'm going to have to look on Twitter because it's too small here. They Bad Robot tweeted that, you know, they jumped on the bandwagon with everybody else. Black Lives Matter. We're not going to stand for this. Enough death, enough injustice, blah, 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 right? All that bullshit. And then immediately people are commenting, well, how many black people do you have that are in executive positions? You know, none. You know, enough injustice. And then yet, you know, where's Finn? Because this isn't just Lucasfilm. This is Bad Robot and JJ as well. Remember that. This is The Force Awakens. So it's nothing to do with Rian Johnson. And it was just about connecting the dots, how they are hypocrites, because you've got, you know, them saying enough of this, but then yet they say, this is Bad Robot's tweet. Landmark win. Harvey Weinstein found guilty. Okay. But then Kathleen Kennedy turns around years later and hires Leslie Headland, who was Weinstein's assistant. Okay, so you see the hypocrisy. They think we're going to forget or not connect dots. And then the same Bad Robot, who is owned by Jar Jar Binks, the idiot, or Jar Jar Abrams, rather, and is claiming this nonsense and claiming this nonsense, who is connected with the person that hired his assistant, and is saying, well, we're not going to have any part of that, is right here, as you can see, having champagne with Kathleen Kennedy. And, oh, look, one black person. Now, two. Okay? So, don't buy into their crap, because they say all kinds of things, and it ain't true. Now, yes, the agenda has influenced him, and yes, understand that Kathleen has not gone anywhere. She is right there. And if you watch the gallery episodes, these were just filmed recently, not years ago, at best just a few months ago. And for all we know, they're just wrapped up, you know, weeks or a month ago. So these are very recent interviews. And Kathleen's there at the round table with them. So she hasn't gone anywhere. She's right there. And yes, you see, well, that's the time. You assume that just like Kennedy, and that's how they paint things, that they're all divided, and that if you remember a little bit, like probably within a month of the Rise of Skywalker coming out, JJ started saying stuff like, oh well, or at least there was this rumor that behind the scenes a conversation was overheard where JJ had made a cut, and this is why the release the JJ cut started coming around. That he had made a cut of The Rise of Skywalker, but then Kathleen and Lucasfilm was going behind him and making all kinds of edits and changing the film daily. So then JJ got upset. He was like, well, if you're just going to change the whole movie, then just say directed by Lucasfilm, right? Take my name off the movie. Now, this was a behind-the-scenes rumor. We don't have that actual factual quote, but this was going around, and this is why the release of JJ cut started coming out, because it was believed that JJ had made a version, and there is also a Lucas cut of this film, and that Lucasfilm started changing it. So then there was the speculation of, well, then JJ and KK obviously must not get along. And then you had the Mandalorian thing where Favreau and Filoni don't want anything to do with Kathleen because she was claiming she created Baby Yoda and that she did all this stuff with the Mandalorian, and she didn't. And they put this stuff out there to make you believe that they're all divided and they're against each other and that it's Kathleen's fault and everybody else is against what she's wanting. But I will repeat, just like in this picture, they're all buddy-buddy. Don't believe the nonsense that they tell you and sell you. Watch the gallery, the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian. Every episode, Kathleen is at the round table with these people. Why? Because they're not feuding. Dave Filoni isn't moping at the table like, oh man, why is Kathleen in this interview? They didn't ban her from the interview. It's Favreau's show, quote unquote. So, and he has control of it, quote unquote. So if he really wanted to, he should have been able to exclude Kathleen. Why is she even there? She's not involved in that project, right? Wrong. She is totally involved. She is the president of Lucasfilm. She is there on the set. She is there pulling strings. She is there giving orders. She is there signing off on things. And don't think for a second that Favreau is in full control or that the SJW stuff isn't coming, because trust me, here it comes. And mark my words, when you all start seeing season 2, remember that I said it, because it's coming. Do not believe their crap. They all work together. They all eat dinner and lunch together. They do events and parties and all kinds of stuff together. They all know each other's families. They all are on the set. And Kathleen Kennedy is still there. She's still very much the president of Lucasfilm. So, are they best friends? Do they share everything? No, I'm not saying that. But this picture, there's other pictures, and if you just go watch the gallery, you're going to see there's KK. So obviously she hasn't been banned off the set or lost control, or, Bob Iger's upset with her for hiring Hedlund. That's all propaganda. That's all. See, what Disney has discovered, and it's not a new thing, but Disney has been very much been using this, is they don't know what to do with Star Wars or how to treat it, because every time they do something, they get backlash. Recently, May the 4th, we reclaim that if you tweet anything with May the 4th hashtag, we own it and we can use it how we want. And then they got this huge backlash. Every step that in the past 6 months or so that Disney takes, they get a backlash because they have no clue what the hell they're doing. Not in marketing, not with Star Wars, none of it. So what they've figured out is, we'll just put stuff out there and it's not necessarily true. We're going to see how the fans react. Okay? So for example, Rosario Dawson cast as Ahsoka Tano. Use common sense, guys. That wasn't announced until months after they already announced that the season 2 was wrapped and finished. And then you've got Rosario in an interview like weeks later saying, no, that's not confirmed. And if it did happen, it would be 1,000,000% because of the fans. If she was indeed signed, she would have either said yes, or she would have not said anything because of an NDA and she couldn't talk about it. But she wouldn't specifically say, it's not confirmed. If it did happen, it would be because of the fans. Why? Because she is not on The Mandalorian season 2, and she's not Ahsoka Tano. Does she want to be? I'm sure she does. Is it a good idea? Yeah, it could be cool. In hindsight, now Jon Favreau and everyone's aware, are they talking about it and thinking about it and saying, hell yeah, that might work? Sure. But she's not Ahsoka Tano. They're already wrapped. And I hear other podcasts and other people talking about, well, yeah, she's there because they wouldn't even have mentioned it if it wasn't true. She's just denying it. Some people are so stupid. Anyways, my point is they all know each other. They all hang out. They all work together. Don't believe their nonsense, because Kathleen hasn't gone anywhere. And as much as I hate to say it, I don't know that she's going to be gone in 2021. The reason I say that is because she's done more than enough to get fired over. You have cost the company billions, not $1,000, not $1 million. You have cost Disney Corporation billions of dollars. Anyone else would have been fired. I mean, you do realize, like, I don't know, everybody has different life experiences, but like, I've done all kinds of jobs. I'm not old, but older. I've been around. I have experience and wisdom under my belt. I have seen people fired for their cash register drawer being short like 30 cents because the company thinks that they're stealing and that the drawer should always come out. Like literally fired for $1 or less, or even a few dollars. This woman has cost Disney and the Star Wars franchise billions of dollars, and she's still there. So either A, this is part of what Disney wants. She's fulfilling the agenda that they all have planned, whatever crazy nonsense this is. Or B, obviously, she has something on somebody, whether it be Iger or the President of the United States or something. She's got something on somebody that they cannot fire her. And it's also probably partly a combination that if they fire her, all the little SJWs are going to come out crying, "You fired a woman." Meanwhile, she's cost billions of dollars and destroyed the most valuable franchise in film history. But you're still going to get people that are going to cry and say, "But she's a woman and she was unjustly treated." No, she's a failure and she needs to be removed. So if she hasn't been removed after the sequel trilogy, which is complete trash, Solo, which literally cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, The Mandalorian, which that little show is going to end soon enough, that whole hype and all that, you're going to see, it's all going to go away. Clone Wars, that's not really her success. That existed long before Disney was sold, and a lot of that stuff was already kind of outlined, and they just finished it up. So it's not like she gets credit for making it or doing anything. Kathleen literally has nothing but L's under her belt as the president of Lucasfilm. Literally all L's. She does not have a single win. So if she hasn't been fired already, well, I don't know that she's ever going to be. She's going to have to retire. And if that's the case, she's going to draw it out as long as she can, just so she can prove the Force is female. So then that tells me, I don't know her age, but I would think she's got another 5-10 years in her of, kicking people around. And I know it's a terrible thought that we'd be stuck with her for that much longer, but at this point, to not be fired, I don't think she's going anywhere, guys. Just using common sense. Ugh. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. So talk to me. What else is on your mind? What other questions do you got? Good old KK. Yeah, look, sipping champagne with her boy Jar Jar Abrams. And you see here, we're a diverse company. And yet, I'm looking at this picture from a bit of a distance. It's smaller on my screen here. And I see just all white faces. Yeah, there's, a couple of little brown faces here and there, but, it's pretty obvious. John Boyega. What about John Boyega? Man, I really like him as a person, but he constantly disappoints me. Like, he seems to have very little Star Wars knowledge. And, I understand you're an actor, you get asked to play a role, and I don't expect that you have to go out, like, let's say I got hired to do, I don't know. What would make sense? Work on the next Matrix. Okay. I don't necessarily have to know everything about the Matrix to work on the project, right? They give me my script and I just do what I'm told. But, if I was going to be on a project, especially a huge project, and especially Star Wars of all things, I would watch all the movies like 30 times, know what the hell I'm talking about, and, really be trying to convey that through my character. Now, I understand you have your script and you're just expected to do what you're supposed to do. So even if he really knew the stuff and was like, JJ, that's not right, he doesn't really have much say. But then if nothing else, on a fan level, interacting with fans, you should know Star Wars. I just feel, Daisy Ridley, my God, is she another one? Everyone has the Force. That's what she says. Everyone has the Force. I mean, these people are totally clueless about what Star Wars is. And I understand both sides. You're just an actor. You're not necessarily expected to know everything. But, I mean, it's Star Wars, dude. You should take it seriously. And you should educate yourself as to what Star Wars is. I think he's a good kid. I think he has a good heart. He does seem to understand and prioritize that, yes, the new movies are a mess and that the old characters and the old stories are where they're at. He has alluded to that in many different situations. But, it's just a little frustrating to me when he says, I'm playing Battlefront and I'm using Boosk. It's Bosk, not Boosk. Just stuff like that. It just shows me that he's not really a hardcore Star Wars fan. And again, I want to repeat that you don't have to be a hardcore Star Wars fan to be involved in a Star Wars movie. But one would think if you're hired to be on Star Wars, you would kind of think it's important and learn as much about it as you could. Especially when you have Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher right there. I mean, if I didn't know all the stuff that I know about Star Wars, I would be on them like white on rice every day. Like, please teach me, show me, what was it like? Tell me what the characters are or how it worked, what the feeling was. I mean, all of that. But, he took it as, it's just a job and I'm going to do what I'm told. So in that sense, I don't have respect for him. Because he just took it as a job. And if you're not going to respect the franchise that myself and so many people love, then how much respect can I give you for screwing it up? To be fair, I have the same amount of lack of respect for Mark Hamill. Because Mark Hamill didn't write The Last Jedi. It's not his fault. But yet, Mark Hamill didn't say, well, he did say, this is wrong in interviews, and I assume he did say it to Rian Johnson. He says he did. But what Mark Hamill failed to do is boycott or walk off the set and say, look, I'm not doing this. You're not going to have Luke Skywalker like this. You can sue me. You can burn up my contract. You can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, as soon as social media gets wind that you're trying to destroy Luke Skywalker and I walked off the set, guess who everybody's side they're going to take? Are they going to take Disney's side or Luke fucking Skywalker's side? Okay? So at the end of the day, Mark Hamill is somewhat responsible for this mess too, as is Harrison, as is Carrie, as is all these people, because at the end of the day, they took a paycheck and they said, well, it's not our story. We're just going to play along with whatever they say. And really, the three of them, of all the people, should have stood together and said, no. You're not going to do this to George Lucas. You're not going to do this to Star Wars. And you're certainly not going to do this to my Princess Leia, my Han Solo, and my Luke Skywalker. And when I say my, as them speaking, right? As in Mark Hamill saying, you're not going to do this to my character. So in a sense, they are just as responsible because they all could have walked off the set and said, no, this is not correct. You're not going to do this to Star Wars. They all instead, and Billy D. Williams as well, and Anthony Daniels, and latecomer Ian McDiarmid. He should have been the one that said, guys, I'm sorry, but Palpatine's dead. I can't do that to Lucas and Star Wars and the fans. But he was dying to do some film work. He was dying to be back on the limelight. He was dying for that paycheck. And he brought back Palpatine because he very easily, what would Disney have done, right? If he had said, no, I'm not going to do it, okay, then people would say, well, they'll just hire someone else. Okay. But then obviously in interviews and the social media, it's going to get out that they approached Ian for him to bring back Palpatine. Then he's going to say, no, that's not correct. I cannot do that because that's not what happened. George Lucas said that he was dead. And then there, Disney looks like a bunch of idiots. So you see, the actors themselves could have kind of halted this mess from the beginning. So all of them, the new actors, Daisy, John, all of them, and the old ones, Mark, Carrie, Harrison, they all should have said, Ryan, no, sir, this is not going to happen. So how much can I defend them when they, knowing the most important franchise that has ever existed, that has touched so many millions of people's lives, that is going to live for decades, generations, and they took a paycheck? See what I'm saying? So I don't think they're bad people. Daisy is not the smartest girl. She has said a lot of stupid things, from her not being white privileged to everyone has the Force. I mean, this girl really does not know Star Wars. I even, in some of my videos, show you interview clips. This girl is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and she doesn't know when to shut up. But I don't think she's a bad person. I would like to think that if I sat in a room with Daisy, she would be pleasant enough to speak to. She has a pretty face. It wouldn't hurt my eyes to be around her. I'm not into her. I'm not attracted to her, and that's not a personality thing. I just don't think, I'm not into toothpicks, personally. But I think she's probably a decent person. Does she know Star Wars? No. Does she know how to handle social media? Absolutely not. But overall, Adam Driver, I don't think he did that great of a job. Some people say, wow, he did an amazing job. I don't think he did that great. But he seems like a nice enough guy, I guess. I just want to make it clear that I'm not attacking the actors on a personal level. Mark Hamill, I've had a lot of respect for this past year, because he's just like, some of his tweets are out there, man. And like, Luke Skywalker should not be attacking Trump's kids, stuff like that. It's just, dude, just don't. It's not good, but whatever. But I think Mark Hamill, is probably a pretty decent guy. And of course, all these years I would have loved to have chatted with him. Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, all these people, I think they're good people. But I think that a lot of them have lost, they've been away from so long, and then Disney comes along. It's like, hey, Disney production, you're going to be back in Star Wars, and by the way, here's X amount of millions of dollars. I don't totally fault them for doing it, but I just feel like it's partly their responsibility, because they all should have banded, if nothing else, the old school crew. And when I say this is also Lucasfilm employees. Hello. Should have all been like, no, this is not Star Wars, and we're not going to allow this to happen. You're going to have to fire all of us. Okay? So that's the thing, is that they didn't all stand their guns and say, no, you're going to have to sue and or fire us. You can always get another job, guys. If you have morals, then you shouldn't have accepted it. They would, of course, defend themselves, but I have to feed my family. Well, first of all, if you've been working at Lucasfilm or in Star Wars for a few years, you should have some money. Okay? You should have something in the bank. I'm not saying you're a multimillionaire, but you should have something. Second, go to any company. Oh, I worked at Lucasfilm for 5 years, 30 years, whatever. You're going to get another job. Seriously. Why did you leave? Why did you quit? Or why were you fired? Well, because morally they wanted to destroy the most important franchise on Earth. Oh, okay, well, you're hired. Okay? So, that's not an excuse. They all should have stepped away, boycotted it, and said no. So, I saw a clip from The Last Jedi documentary that showed Rhiannon receiving a call from Lucas. I don't recall that, but I do recall a clip that I actually have right now. I would have to look around for it, but I do have it. I've been meaning to use it in a video. Luke is filming the scene where and this was deleted, of course, in the film, the scene where the Jedi Temple is burning. And he breaks down. Mark Hamill, not Luke. Mark Hamill breaks down because he knows this is not Luke Skywalker. This is not the Star Wars story. And he literally breaks down. He's on his knees. He's hunched over, crying, because he knows that what he's doing is wrong and that this is not Star Wars. It's not Luke Skywalker. It's not the story. It's not the Jedi way. I mean, all of it. And he literally is sitting there sobbing on the set. So you can't tell me that he didn't consciously know, or that it didn't affect him, or that he didn't care. But yet he went through and portrayed this Jake Skywalker. So he's somewhat just at fault as Rian and KK and all these people. You know, he should have walked away. Yep. I did recently hear a little audio clip of Boyega talking about this, that he was pretty pissed that, you know, they changed the poster. And, you know, this is, let me see, do I have the other one here? Because I had been tweeting about this nonsense. Yeah, this one. Let's see if it shows up. Yeah. So, in case you or whoever watching hadn't seen this, we stand with John Boyega and his message that now is the time. Well, no, it's not now is the time. It's been the time decades, generations, centuries ago. Black lives have always mattered. Oh, really? Black lives have always been important. Oh, really? Black lives have always meant something. Oh, really? The evil that is racism must stop. We will commit to being part of the change that is long overdue in the world. John Boyega, you are our hero. Oh, really? And there's that. You are our hero. Well, you don't tend to eliminate your heroes from posters. Now, do you? And it just, you know, I don't know if Disney is just stupid and doesn't realize how stupid they look, or they think we're stupid and we're not going to remember something from just like a couple of years ago. You know, there's different types of racism in this world, and it's not all like, you know, the in-your-face obvious, you know, shooting at black people and using the N-word all over the place. There's other types of racism, and this right here is one type of it. This is double racism. This is one, China's racism against black people, so they had to shrink him down. But this is also the reverse racism of Disney bending the knee and doing this. Because if Disney truly cared about John Boyega and he is their hero, he wouldn't be. Furthermore, Disney would have made a statement and made him even bigger. They would have put him there instead of Rey. Furthermore, we all thought that Rey doesn't even have a lightsaber, now does she? But Finn does. So we all thought from the beginning Finn was going to be the new Jedi. He's the Force Awakening. You know? And then, yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. He got turned into a janitor. You know, the black guy. Well, what was the black guy do? Oh, he's the janitor. That's Rian Johnson. So don't tell me that he's your hero and that Black Lives Matter and he's important and they've always been important. Well, if they've always been important, why the hell aren't they on your posters? You know, when Empire came out and Jedi, no, the posters didn't have Lando smeared all over them, and he wasn't the most predominant character, but he was always there. And furthermore, Lando Calrissian was a pimped out, smooth player who owned his own entire Cloud City, and I guess technically probably the planet. He owned if nothing else, the entire mining facility. He was the one that had the Millennium Falcon originally. You know, Lando was pretty full of clout and pretty important and pretty loved. And, you know, he had his little stumble there when they introduced him, but he immediately became part of the crew. And from that moment forward, he was with them the whole time. Don't forget that technically him and Nien Nunb blew up the second Death Star. Hello. So Big difference between Lucas and Disney Star Wars. Lucas, without saying it, showed the Black lives in everybody. All races, all aliens, droids, everybody mattered. And Disney made this guy the janitor. You know, so when they say stuff like, Black Lives Matter and he's our hero and they're always been important. Well, always since when? Since this stuff happened and you need to talk about it. That's always, because he wasn't that important not just a little bit ago. So yep. Jayne was I guess you're seeing what I'm seeing here. Anyways, yeah, he sure did. He got turned into a janitor. Here, let's talk about this because I haven't had an opportunity to talk about it. Last Jedi, he's at the end going to he's flying into the battering ram laser thing the First Order has right at the end of the movie on Crate. They're gonna infiltrate the Resistance base, and he's decided he's going to sacrifice and flies himself into that thing, and then Rose, crashes him and kisses him, which, by the way, if you ever watch the movie again, look at his face when Rose kisses him. He's totally mortified. I think it's so funny. Anyways, instead of giving him a hero's death, not saying that I wanted him to die, okay? I like Finn. If it was me from the beginning, he would have been the next Jedi. Rey would have had nothing to do with any of this. I probably wouldn't even have had Rey in the movie, but whatever. She would be a side character. I would have made Finn the defective stormtrooper that's the next Jedi. He meets up with Luke, and man, they could have done some really awesome stuff there. First, I would have had him meet up with Han, okay? And they would have had like a swashbuckling kind of pirate smuggler part. And The Force Awakens would have been establishing that he's the next Jedi, that he had left the First Order, and he meets up with Han. They go on a little adventure. He learns some stuff from Han, kind of gets initiated into the Resistance because he brings him to Leia. They all get acquainted, and then Leia says, "You need to go see my brother. You need to go meet up with Luke Skywalker." And then it would have gone into The Last Jedi, or whatever the film would have been called, of him then training. And heavily, the second movie would have been about Finn and Luke training, passing the torch, all that. Yeah, well, I would have done other stuff with Han and other characters, and etc. Kylo or whatever villain, but that could have been an awesome thing. Anyways, but I would have been okay with him taking the hero's death, flying down the mouth of that battering ram thing, right? Killing himself, but blowing up that giant laser and saving the Resistance, whether they ended up breaking through anyways. I mean, they had 18 walkers. I don't know why they weren't just blasting at the damn door. It's just Disney logic. But even if they slowed them down, well, it gave the time for the Resistance to escape, and Finn would have gone down as a hero, whether he ended up being the Last Jedi or not, or whatever. They didn't have to degrade him to a janitor, and they didn't have to, do that ridiculous thing with him getting crashed into by Rose, who then Rose and him don't even have a relationship for significance anyways. Rose is barely even in the third film. I mean, the whole thing's just so stupid. I myself, and I'm pretty sure everyone would have preferred him not to die, that we all would have been proud of him for the hero's death, that he, blew that thing up and the Resistance got away. So, anyways, I'd like to see Obi-Wan have some nightmares in the show about failing Anakin. In the show. So I guess you're meaning like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, if and when it ever comes. I'm going to take it as that. Okay. I don't think Obi-Wan was perfect. I'm sure that he made mistakes, and although we don't see a whole lot of it, I'm sure there was times that he let Anakin down. Failed, I think that's a little bit perceptive. Like, for example, when towards the end of Revenge of the Sith, he says, I'm sorry, Anakin, I failed you, or I did fail you. And I understand he's his master, and maybe he's thinking, like he's having all these flashbacks in his mind at that moment, and he's realizing, man, I should have stuck closer to him. I should have been more of a father to him. I should have done this or that. We all see things in hindsight. But I think that Obi-Wan is a very good person, very big heart, one of the best Jedi, very wise, very in tune with the Force. So I don't think he would have had too many failures with Anakin. He maybe had some disconnects because he's not his father, and he doesn't know how to relate to him, and he's not quite his brother either, although that was kind of the closest thing. He was kind of, I don't want to say he was stuck with him, but he was kind of, forced upon Obi-Wan, although I don't think Obi-Wan had a problem with it. So I think it's a little bit perceptive as far as him failing, because I don't know how much he really failed Anakin. Did he make mistakes? Sure. Did he maybe not always make the best decision or do the best that he could have? Not because out of lack of wanting to, but just because not knowing what to do. Sure, absolutely. But I don't know that he failed Anakin too much. I think that Obi-Wan's a pretty great guy and Jedi, and that maybe it wasn't the proper lesson for that day or the best way of going about it. Anakin would have taken something else out of Obi-Wan in the way that he was trying to teach that lesson. Sometimes someone is trying to teach you something and you don't take from it what you want or think you need, but indirectly or accidentally you may take something else from it that could be just as valuable. Sometimes you seek an answer and you don't get that direct answer, but you may get another piece of the puzzle, another piece of information or wisdom that is just as valuable. But let's get to the concept of what you're saying. And assuming, again, Obi-Wan show. Yeah, it would be kind of neat if they showed maybe not so much failing Anakin, but things that they went through. I think you would agree with me. Episode I think it might have broken up there a little bit. I had this spinning wheel of death on my screen. Now, I think part of this is coming from because there's rumors that Hayden is going to be in the Obi-Wan show, but how could he possibly be? Because the timeline obviously doesn't fit. So the only way it really could be is if it was like flashbacks or memories or dreams, nightmares of Anakin, right? Not Vader, but Anakin. And yeah, that could be cool. Start to show an alternate end to episode 3. Anakin and Padme end up with the twins. Anakin approaches Obi-Wan with yellow eyes. He chokes him and calls him a failure. Obi-Wan could wake up extremely frightened. That's a thought. But you know what? I was reading the first sentence there, and I actually kind of like that idea that what if he's seeing an alternate of them with the twins? Not necessarily that he's choking them or turning to the Sith, but that he's good and that he's with the kids, and that he would have seen what the alternative would have been. That could be interesting. The problem here with this, though, is it starts to tread Mandalorian territory in that, okay, we bring back Hayden, we bring in Anakin, right? And then it starts to become all these flashbacks and things about Anakin. And then, then what does it become? The Anakin flashback reunion history tour. It's just like The Mandalorian. What's The Mandalorian become? The Baby Yoda show. Because nobody cares about Din Djarin. Most people don't even know his name. Nobody gives a freaking goddamn about The Mandalorian. They care about Baby Yoda. That's why people watch the show. Some people won't admit it, some people don't realize it, but right now, if you ask truly from the bottom of their hearts, 99% of people are going to say, I watched The Mandalorian because of Baby freaking Yoda. Not because of The Mandalorian, because nobody cares about The Mandalorian. He's an idiot. So then it becomes the same thing here. Are we going to make a Obi-Wan show that's going to focus on Obi-Wan? And why is it important that he even has a show? Or is it going to turn into Anakin flashbacks? I'm not trying to shoot down your thing because I think it's cool. And I love Anakin as much as anyone else, so it would be neat, especially from Obi-Wan's perspective. Okay, so don't take it wrong. But I just think, so you understand that it's treading that water of now it's like going away from the point of the Obi-Wan show, right? Just have one scene with Anakin to show how much Anakin turn affected Obi-Wan. Yeah, and I would even argue it could be it could be one of the episodes. You know what I mean? Like one episode could be about, even like the first episode is that bridge of, I'm going into exile now, I'm on Tatooine, and now I'm dealing with these direct demons while they're fresh of, you know, what happened with Anakin and the twins and Yoda and the Republic and the clones, and like him just kind of like taking it all in. Or because remember, he's still in the middle of the freaking Clone Wars. All this stuff is going on until he really gets to Tatooine and hands over baby Luke to Baru. He's not really able to like exhale and gather himself. So I wouldn't think until like, you know, a few days or a few weeks after that he's gets his little hut, he starts to kind of know the lay of the land, goes to the little cantina, has a couple drinks, and he starts to decompress and starts to gather himself and start to reflect on, okay, everything. And now he can kind of put his guard down because he's now far away. Luke is at least somewhat safe and everything's settled down and they're separated and all that. So by all means, I think that the first episode, not even like a scene or a couple minutes, like the first episode could literally be this, him reflecting on Anakin and all these things, his own feelings and gathering himself. And yeah, it could be very cool. All I'm saying is they have to be careful to limit it to that, because then it starts to become, again, now the Anakin Force Ghost show. You know what I mean? And then it defeats, like, what's the point of the Obi-Wan show then? It's again like the Mandalorian. What's the point? Because why didn't they just make the Baby Yoda show with a Mandalorian in it? You see what I'm saying? Like, if it's all about Baby Yoda, then why? Because it's a gimmick. Because it's the easiest way to have sold, and it's their replacement for the Boba Fett film. They thought, well, we screwed over the Boba Fett film, so we'll make a Mandalorian TV show, and this will keep everybody complacent. Meanwhile, guys like me that are real Boba Fett fans are never going to forgive you for bringing this half-ass wannabe bounty hunter instead of using Boba Fett. It just doesn't make sense. So, whatever. They just have to do it carefully and cleverly. Now, you know, again, as I discussed earlier, Kathleen Kennedy's in charge of all this. Remember, it's in my videos. She says, and I quote, "It's all finished. We have all the scripts ready, and we're ready to start beginning filming this summer." And literally, you can go watch my video. It's there. It's at D23 last August, I think it was. She's on stage, and then Obi-Wan or Ewan McGregor comes out, and you know, he says, "Yeah, I'm going to be Obi-Wan." And she literally, at the end of that little presentation, says, "We have the scripts done, and we're ready to start filming." Now, why was the Obi-Wan show canceled, put on hold indefinitely? Because Kathleen Kennedy's not happy with it. So again, if anyone thinks that she's going away or secretly fired or not involved, no, she's still the president of Lucasfilm and she's still very much involved. You don't have the Obi-Wan show because of Kathleen Kennedy. Because right now it should, if nothing else, be wrapping production. You do know that show has been in talks for 5 years. So it should have been done years ago. Lucasfilm has now had, Disney has now had Star Wars for 8 years. It's kind of hard to believe, but you know, that show should have been developed, done even before Mandalorian. So, I would like to see Qui-Gon show. Yes, that's something I would very much like to see as well. I don't know because I'm not George Lucas and I don't know behind the scenes. But what I believe, from what I remember in the dialogue in the movies, and I would be willing to bet money that I'm correct. Qui-Gon reaches out and communicates with Yoda. He teaches Yoda how to communicate with the other side, thus force ghosting. Yoda, in turn, teaches Obi-Wan. So technically, you wouldn't see Qui-Gon showing Obi-Wan, you would see Yoda. Which also implies that it's unclear how would Yoda and Obi-Wan be communicating. Would Obi-Wan potentially be traveling? Does he ever go visit Yoda, or does Yoda potentially ever go visit? Maybe Yoda, after like, I don't know, 5 years, says, hey, let me go check on Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker. It's important. Let me take a trip to Tatooine. We don't know. There's kind of that gap there. Were they force Skyping? I certainly hope not. I don't think so, because that was never shown in Star Wars. That was never introduced. There was sort of a version of it, like when Luke calls out to Leia. But one, they're family, they're blood. And two, see, this is and I guess people would argue this in the sequel trilogy too, but if there was any kind of like force Skype, it would have to be with someone that you've interacted with. Okay, so that's why Luke and Leia can communicate. That's why when Luke is when Obi-Wan is on the Death Star, Vader says, oh, I've felt a presence I haven't felt since. So he can sense Obi-Wan. But obviously, you know, that's his master. He's spent a lot of time with him. He had personal connection and interaction with him. Same thing, Luke and Vader, when in Jedi, they're coming in the shuttle Tidarian, and he says, I'm compromising the mission. He knows that I'm here. Okay, and I believe they fade to Vader's face, and he says, Luke. It's been a while since I watched it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes now. Something like that. But these are people that have direct connections. So it is feasible that Obi-Wan and Yoda, having so much past together, could potentially somewhat force Skype or sense each other. That's the thing, like they could sense each other. They couldn't like force Skype like the sequel, like where they're seeing each other and talking to each other, and like, you know, water and the beads and all these things are crossing over. That's just taking it to a whole other level. That's bullshit. They could sense each other. So it's possible that, I don't know that they would be talking to each other, but that, you know, they could kind of sense each other, that everything's okay or not, kind of send across a type of feeling or emotion. And, you know, but I guess it would imply that at some point, Yoda and or Obi-Wan would have had to travel, whether they met on Coruscant or some other planet, or Yoda went to Tatooine, or Ben to Dagobah. I guess we'll never know unless we ever get to talk to Lucas about it. But Qui-Gon teaches Yoda, Yoda teaches Ben. So, and then in theory, Ben teaches Luke. Or Ben and Yoda, I always took it as, would then kind of mentor Luke, and if anything, he would learn it from them. Both, right? But going back to your thing, yeah, it would be very cool to see Qui-Gon, at least then, teaching Yoda. And then how did Yoda teach Ben? Now, and I don't think you mean it this way, but just since I'm on the topic, I don't think you really become a Force ghost. I don't think that's the what happens, like that you manifest yourself as a ghost. I think that you are so in tune with the Force that you find a way to communicate from the other side, and that itself manifests you as a ghost. I don't know that it's like you saying, I'm going to make myself an apparition so that you can see me. I think it's that because you have such a strong connection and that you're communicating through the Force, that manifests. which goes back to the point that not all Jedi turn into Force ghosts. Okay? Not all Jedi fade when they die. Some just die. Only the highest, most powerful, most wise of them fade away and then later have the potential of being a ghost and communicating from the other side. It's not like just an inherent thing that all of them can do. Not all dead Jedi are ghosts. We'll never see like an Isla Sakura Force ghost. I can't imagine. I love her. She's one of my favorite Jedi. She is I don't know if she was a Master Jedi. I want to say she was. I know she was definitely a top tier Jedi. I would have to look that up. I don't recall if she actually has the title of Master, although I think she probably does. But she was definitely one of the top tier Jedi. Obviously, that's why they show her, right? Of all the Jedi. Plo Koon, those guys. That's why they show them, is because they were top tier. Pretty sure she was a Master. Point being is, I don't think there would ever be an Isla Sakura Force Ghost because she didn't achieve that level. That's the thing. There's Master Jedi and there's Grand Master Jedis. All right. So Yoda was a Grand Master, Luke was a Grand Master, Qui-Gon was a Grand Master. Obviously, although the order had fell and he wouldn't have that title, Obi-Wan was a Grand Master. Anakin would have been a Grand Master. I guess Mace, arguably. Well, I don't know. Was he a Grand Master or just a Master? I'd have to look that up as well. Because to be on the council, I'd have to look it up. It's been a while. Do you have to be a Grand Master to be on the council or just a Master? I inherently want to say that you have to be a Grand Master. Anyways, point being is that all Jedi do not fade nor become a ghost. Yes, he was the one because Yoda says that he discovered the way to communicate from the other side and that he would teach him. So yes, it was Qui-Gon. And Qui-Gon was just absolutely... Qui-Gon technically was on the council and was a Grand Master. The thing is that he did not want to accept that position because he didn't agree with everything that the council believed and did. So he did not accept the position, but he was asked to be on the council, and he was technically rank of Grandmaster. Yes, absolutely. Which is kind of sad because some people like diminish him just because he gets killed by Darth Maul. You know, this is the thing that like people don't always get with Star Wars. It's not that Qui-Gon wasn't good. They're showing you, Lucas is showing you that Darth Maul's no joke. That he's one of the only two Sith for a reason, because he's exceptionally good. And he's also younger and more athletic. And he happened to catch Qui-Gon. Because that battle could have gone either way. Qui-Gon could have beat him. So, a lot of times people are like, well, Qui-Gon sucked because he just gets killed by Darth Maul. No, you're reading it wrong. Darth Maul, George Lucas is showing you, is something serious. And then on the reverse of that, Obi-Wan defeats Darth Maul. Why? Not because Darth Maul's a joke, but because Obi-Wan, I mean, duh, don't you get it? Is one of the best Jedi of all time. And some people say, oh, but he was a Padawan. No, he was not a Padawan. He was Padawan by title, but he was already ready for the trials and passed all of that. And he killed a Sith. So obviously he was not just a Padawan. Some people are freaking blockheads. Anyways, Lucas had a way of showing you things in a different way. And what he was showing you is that Maul was something serious. That's why he killed Qui-Gon. That's not saying that Qui-Gon wasn't one of the best Jedi. He was an absolute Grand Master, one of the wisest, and very powerful. And then on the flip side of that, it shows you that Obi-Wan was something serious too, because he took out Darth Maul. If Obi-Wan was just some kid, whatever Jedi, he wouldn't have killed Darth Maul. So it's not diminishing Maul and it's not diminishing Qui-Gon. It's only strengthening each character in step. Qui-Gon already is a beast. They're showing you that Maul is also a beast. That's why he beat him. And then they're showing you, or Lucas is showing you, that Obi-Wan is a beast because he ends up taking out Maul. Again, people watch these movies and they know the trivia, but they don't get these things. They don't understand what Lucas is plainly saying and showing you in your face. I think Qui-Gon was the first to become one with the Force. Qui-Gon was a true Jedi. He was a true Jedi. He was one of the greatest. If you read Expanding Universe, if you know anything about Star Wars, if you paid attention, behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff, yes, Qui-Gon was very powerful, very important. The first to become one with the Force. No, I would argue that. All Jedi, furthermore, everyone, when you die, you become part of the Force. The Force is the living force around that goes through everything and everyone. The trees, the rocks, remember? So the Force is in everyone. I equate it to the Force is like the ether. Okay, it's everywhere. And midichlorians are like atoms. Or molecules, if you want, or cells. I usually say atoms. So we all have the Force going through us, but it doesn't mean that we have the ability to channel it, or we have different ways of channeling it. So, for example, Michael Jordan, right, has an X amount of Force or midichlorians, and that's why he could fly on the basketball court. That's why he was the best basketball player, because his midichlorian count would have been very high, right, as the metaphor. Other players have midichlorians, so therefore they would be professional basketball players, but they weren't on Michael Jordan's level, right? And then there's people that don't have those kind of midichlorians. They might have different type of midichlorians to be a lawyer or a doctor or an artist or whatever. Or just in general, you're just an average, pretty mediocre person. You don't really have midichlorians. But at the end of the day, the Force goes through all of us, and we all have some value of midichlorians, I would think. Whether it be 1 or 5 or 10 million, whatever the case. So I would not say that he's the first to become one with the Force. Every living thing, bugs, snakes, trees, people, aliens, flowers, whatever, are part of the Force. When they die, they all become a part of the Force. They go into the ether. Qui-Gon was the first one to, through his wisdom and power and experience, be able to discover the way to communicate from the other side. So therefore harness a channel, a part of the Force, to where he could literally communicate from the other side. So therefore, yes, he was the first in that sense. But again, I believe that we're all part of the Force. You die, you evaporate, if you will, into the Force. Was he the first to enter the netherworld of the Force? Well, again, no, I wouldn't think so. There's been generations of Sith and Jedi, so they would have all entered the netherworld or the other dimension or whatever have you. He was the first to be able to cross over and communicate from that other side to this side. I hope that makes sense. But they all would have, for generations, been entering the netherworld or other world. And when you say netherworld, do you mean the other side, or you're kind of implying hell? I don't think that Qui-Gon went to hell. I don't know, maybe the wording there. But again, we all die and pretending that we're in the Star Wars universe, right? We die, we go into the Force. Yes, the other side, okay. We all go into the Force. Therefore, we all go to the other side. It's just that Qui-Gon had the wisdom to figure out how to communicate from the other side. But not just communicate, like become an apparition. And, well, then again, we don't know that he even figured out the Force Ghost. Let's be fair here. He learns how to communicate from the other side. We don't see him as a Force Ghost. So perhaps, without Lucas's clarifying it, but let's go by, I'm going to go by 40 plus years of Star Wars knowledge and what I actually saw in the films. Okay, Yoda says Qui-Gon has learned to communicate from the other side and that he will teach Obi-Wan. Fine. Doesn't mean that Yoda saw him. It means that he communicated. So it could have been a voice. It could have been him moving the vase around. Who knows, right? But he communicated from the other side. I'm assuming that speaking verbally, he communicated with Yoda. Doesn't mean Yoda saw a Force ghost. Then Yoda's going to teach Obi-Wan. Perhaps Yoda in his wisdom, because remember, he is the wisest of all Jedi. Not just because he's 900 years old, but also because Yoda's Yoda and he's a badass and he's the wisest of the Jedi. Lucas has directly said that. Yoda's the wisest, Mace Windu was the most powerful. So Yoda potentially could have taken what Qui-Gon shows him to communicate, dug in deeper, figured out how to become a Force ghost, teaches this to Obi-Wan, and then when Obi-Wan crosses over, he shows up as a ghost. Now, also to give Obi-Wan credit, maybe Yoda was starting to figure it out, passed it on to Obi-Wan, because remember, Obi-Wan dies before Yoda, and maybe Obi-Wan is literally the first Force ghost. We don't know because we haven't seen any others, right? So as far as we know, while we all assumed that's what happened to Jedi, we now know that doesn't happen to all Jedi. They don't all fade, and they don't all turn into ghosts. So perhaps it's not impossible that Obi-Wan is the first Force ghost. So some credit to Obi-Wan or to Yoda. Maybe Qui-Gon established the basis and beginning of it. Yoda took it another step, and for all we know, Obi-Wan is the one that truly harnessed and learned how to become an apparition, a Force ghost. Okay, so we don't know, but from what we see, technically the first Force ghost is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's very possible that he took what Yoda teaches him, he discovers how to take it a step farther, becomes a Force ghost, and then by the time Yoda dies, Yoda also knows how to become a Force ghost. I could be completely wrong, but I believe he was moving objects on Dagobah with Yoda. Obi-Wan's Force ghost or Qui-Gon? Either way, no, I don't believe so. Yoda's the wisest, arguably the most powerful of all time, although in the EU, Luke becomes the most powerful of all time. Qui-Gon, yeah, no, I don't think so. You see, if you look at the movies as a whole, 1 through 6, your mind might think that, but you got to remember that the original Star Wars came out several years before the prequels, so Qui-Gon wasn't even a thought. Maybe deep in a notebook somewhere, Lucas had mentioned Qui-Gon or had an idea for a Qui-Gon character, but he wasn't fleshed out. He didn't know all the connections of Qui-Gon, and he probably didn't know any implication of Qui-Gon being on Dagobah with Yoda. I don't know. I'm not in Lucas's head. Maybe he was, but most likely no. So I wouldn't think so. I think that it's pretty just straightforward that Yoda was Yoda, and he was moving stuff around, and give credit to Yoda. It was in the last 4 episodes of season. Yeah, well, but see, that's, again, if I had the keys, all of that nonsense would be poof, because it's bullshit. That's all Dave Filoni, this phony Filoni creating shit. That's not Lucas. That's not what it is. Maybe some people don't understand this. George Lucas wrote the outline and the idea for the Clone Wars, and he was very much involved in the first 3 seasons, although not on everything. But he created the outline and he handed it to Dave Filoni. Now Dave Filoni would consult and would go to Lucas to sign off on certain things, but most of the Clone Wars was, here you go, Dave, make the Clone Wars. Just stay within these parameters. So a lot of what you see, most of what you see in the Clone Wars is phony Filoni. It's not George Lucas. As much as people want to somehow argue this, it's George Lucas. No, it's not. Absolutely not. The Clone Wars is Dave Filoni. It is not canon, and it has all kinds of problems. So I don't remember that right now, season 6 in Clone Wars, because I haven't watched it in a while, and I never was that much into it because it's another story. And again, that does not coincide with the movies. You see, that's why I don't pay attention to it, because it's contradicting the films. You cannot contradict the films. Anything that in any shape or form contradicts episodes 1 through 6 is not canon. It is not real. It is fan fiction, including the Clone Wars. So I would have to go back and watch it. Moving objects on Dagobah with Yoda. I mean, you see that kind of thing. It's like, why is that necessary? Why Qui-Gon even be there? And why would you diminish Yoda? You see what's happening there? Why can't Yoda be the all-powerful, wise Jedi that was created by Lucas and that is in exile by himself on Dagobah? Because Filoni wants to add to the story. Recently, I found an old interview of Filoni where he says out of his mouth, when I created Ashla, okay, Ahsoka Tano was originally Ashla. She was created by George fucking Lucas for his daughter to have a character to relate to. Filoni, if my memory serves, didn't even like her in the beginning. But Lucas wanted a teenage girl because she was too much of a brat or whatever, and Filoni wasn't real crazy about it. Lucas said, no, I want a character that my daughter can relate to, a teenage female Jedi. He created Ashla, George Lucas. Okay? Then he started to develop her some, and the name changed to Ahsoka. Ahsoka was developed, created, installed into the Clone Wars by George Lucas for his daughter. And she was supposed to be dead before Order 66, but definitely after Order 66. She is in no shape, way, or form part of Revenge of the Sith or survived or any of that. She is a Jedi that was Anakin's apprentice to give some contrast and to give him some structure, but she does not survive. That's why she's not mentioned nor any part of the films. She is a side character that was supposed to die. Dave Filoni turns around and falls in love with her, mostly because the fans started liking her. So then he's like, oh, well, I got to run with it, Ahsoka. And it became his little pet project. And now Ahsoka's his little poster child. Okay. And now she's super Mary Sue and does all this extra stuff in season 7, which was a shame too. I mean, seriously, she survived Darth Vader and Darth Maul. Come on. Anyways, I found an interview where Dave Filoni out of his mouth says, when I created Ashla. Okay, so I've caught Dave Filoni on more than one occasion lying right out of his gums. Because it is undisputed fact that George Lucas created Ashla. So that's why I don't bother with the Clone Wars. I mean, they're cool. I'm not saying they're bad. They're cool little fun cartoons and whatever, but they're not canon. They're retcon all over the place, the films and themselves and the Mandalorian and the prequels. And when you have all these elements retconning and contradicting each other, it's not canon. Especially when the only thing that matters is 1 through 6, which is official canon. So anything that contradicts those 6 films is not canon. And that's why I don't bother. And that's why I said, if you hand me the keys, they're going poof. Because I'm in my universe, I'm not going to have all these conflicts. It's going to all be consistent and it's all going to be respectful to the 6 films. Now, I would also bring back the EU and I would state that this is secondary level canon, that it's okay, that we're going to try to make it fit as best as we can and that it's respectful and that it's there. But at the end of the day, it's not official canon. But I would certainly reinstate the EU and have it there. What do you think about the Clone Wars 2003? Well, I have had it on my channel for about a year. Recently, it got blocked by Disney because I got 170,000 views. Assholes. Which I don't think they have the rights to anyways. It's Cartoon Network property, but I just don't feel like disputing it. I don't want to get into it with Disney. But it's in my playlist. If you try to see it in my playlist here, since I'm mentioning it, I will let me do this in case anyone hears this Stream. Let me get to it real quick. Yeah, they've blocked it so much that it doesn't even show in my playlist, but obviously it's in my account and you can actually still see it. So since we're talking about it, I'm going to share the link here, just in case you or anyone in the future hears this and would like to see it. Just a moment. Here, let me do this. Okay, so if anyone listens to this and you want to see the original 2003-2005 animated shorts, oops, no, it's okay. Yep, they're there. You can, the video is still there. It's blocked, so you can't find it in search, and it doesn't show up in my playlist. And if you do find it in the playlist, it says it's blocked by Disney, but it's there. It has over 170,000 views. So what do I think about it? I think it was fantastic. I love it. It was awesome. I love the artwork. I love the stories. It's over exaggerated. The Jedi are, you know, overly blown, you know, Mace punching all the droids and doing all this stuff. But it's not so much, that's not a Lucas thing. That's not a Star Wars thing. That's Genndy. That's his style. If you've ever watched Samurai Jack, that's what Samurai Jack's like, exaggerated. That's that cartoon style. So it's not like Disney OPing Rey. That's just Genndy's style of artwork, and Lucas approached him for that. I love that Clone Wars. It's super fun. It's super awesome. It's very short on words and talk and story, and it's do or do not. It's not, you know, talking, story, and all that. And I love story. I love dialogue. I love world building and all that stuff. But if you just want to have fun and just see some kick-ass Jedi, like one comment I will never forget that I love on that video of mine of the Clone Wars, and it's all there. And also the making of it is at the end. So if anybody's listening, please enjoy it because it's fantastic, and hopefully it doesn't get totally taken down. But it's blocked. You can't search it. You can't find it. But it's there. It's in my account. My favorite comment, and there's thousands of comments. I can't even remember right now. Let me take a look while I talk about it. 6,000 comments, 161,000 views. Oh yeah, the comments are turned off. They blocked the comments and everything. But anyways, my favorite, and it was ranked #1. It was kicking ass, that video. That's why they blocked it, you know, because it was getting massive views. My favorite comment, and there was a lot of cool ones, but what was it? Let me see if I can, just so I don't misquote, and plus it was such a good quote, I want to get it exactly right. Let me see if I can, which I should be able to in studio find the original comments. Oh no, they've totally hidden the comments completely. Oh, they're wiped out. Sons of bitches. Wow. Yeah, they really have blocked the comments. Like I can't even see the comments that were on the video. Wow. Okay, and then, anyways, there were 6,000 comments. And the comment was something like this. Droids are blades of grass and lightsabers are the lawnmower. Something like that. It was like very simple quote, right? And it sounded like maybe a European guy or something because the way it was worded, but it was something like that, like droids, blades of grass, Jedis or lightsabers, the lawnmower. I mean, it was a real simple comment, and it was just it was so to the point and so direct and like such a great sum up of, yes. It was just badassery. It was just all out Clone Wars as it should be, a big battle. Something I really like about this Clone Wars is that they don't fiddle-faddle around with Rex and all the feelings and personalities and all the clones are different. No. They are clones, guys. They're not going to all have different characters and personalities and feelings. That's not how it works. If anything, they would all exactly act like Jango. They're not all going to be individuals. And that's something that I really hated, that they all started going their own ways and had their own names and all that. No. They're not real people. They're clones. And I know that they're like anti-abortion people would probably get all upset. Like, no, they're like human lives. No. They're test tube babies. They're not real lives. I mean, yes, they're living. They have a heart and a brain, okay. But they're programmed mentally. They're accelerated in growth. And they're just carbon copies. They're not God-made man, woman, love childs. Okay? They're clones. They are expendable soldiers. They didn't talk. They didn't debate. They didn't get in their feelings. They were badasses. They were organized. They were tight. And they were to the point. And they kicked ass. And that's how clones were supposed to be. And I love them. Okay? They went in, they did their job, and shut the fuck up. And they didn't play games. They were much tougher and much cooler than the ones that are in the movies. And I like the ones in the movies. And I'm not against Rex and them. I think they're all cool characters. But too much personality, too much feelings, and too much Anakin caring and all that. Just Ahsoka, like, I'm not going to do it because they're clones. They're all trying to kill us. It's Order freaking 66. But I'm not going to kill them because they're important. No, they're fucking clones. Mow them down. Okay? They're the blades of grass. You're the lawnmower. That's how it has to be. Did they care when they gunned down Isla Secura? Did they care when they gunned down Plo Koon and Kiadi? Did they care when not even a regular clone, when Gree, a commander, comes up behind Yoda and is ready to gun down Yoda? No. Fuck those clones. They are clones. They're just meaty equivalents to the droids, the battle droids. They're not meant to be loved and cared about and all that mess. They are expendable soldiers. Mow them down. So I like them. I'm cool with them. I'm not trying to hate on Rex and all this. But if you want to just have fun, then you watch the original Clone Wars. Okay, you got to go. Cool. Thanks again, Horror Nation. It's been fun. I'm glad you stayed around and we can talk a little bit more. I have some new stuff coming. Video number 50 is coming. I'm right around video number 50. Video number 50 is something special and dear to me, specifically with Star Wars. Keep an eye open. I will give you a hint, Boba Fett. So keep an eye. Video 50 is coming, and it's going to be something special. I thank you very much for coming in. Anyone listening, again, there's the link. Check out the original Clone Wars. I guess I'm going to end this stream. And I thank you. I thank Horror Nation. I thank Jayne Theory for coming in and talking Star Wars with me. And we'll do it again sometime soon. Look for video 50. Boba Fett coming very soon. I wish everybody stay safe out there. Be good to each other. May the Force be with you. And we'll talk some Star Wars with you guys soon. Thank you again also to my supporters. I want to say I'm almost at 800 subscribers, almost to 1,000. So thank you so much. I'm glad to see that there's support and belief in my channel. And hey, we'll keep pushing on. Got 40 years plus of stuff to talk about, so I'll be here, and Star Wars will continue to, or not my Star Wars will continue to grow. Thanks again. Be good, guys, and may the Force be with you all. Take care.